Yes,
is it already?
confirm,
Yes, is it shared, Pak Hari?
confirm, Professor Rocky. Yeah, let's start.
Yeah. Yes. In the next 20 minutes or 25 minutes, I'm going to present our perspective on sustainable energy in Indonesia, especially with the current feedstock that we have in Indonesia from palm oil plantation and valorization. Yeah, thank you so much for the organizer for having this very nice conference. A bit about the introductions. I graduated from Bandung, and then I studied in Netherlands. And in the past few years, I have access to several universities. There is a program from Kemendikbud and Kemendikbud as a world-class professor. This is the introduction about our current activity. So currently I'm developing technology for Saudi Aramco and SABIC. Alhamdulillah, for some projects we reach TRL 5 or 6. We try to be productive in terms of scientific publication and US patents. And also I'm also involved in the Frontiers in Energy Research Journal from Switzerland. So I would like to introduce this discussion with the options that we have for sustainable energy. Yeah, if we see now the vision in Europe, they have technology advancement. In Europe nowadays, they are trying to adopt for hydrogen technology, because mostly they are the technology provider for every aspect in hydrogen technology. In Indonesia, after the oil, we have mostly the feedstock uh, from renewables, yeah, edible oils, and we also hope that we will have non-edible oils. With this, we hope to have the energy security, and then with the consideration of the infrastructure that we have, which is mostly only for liquid fuels, and we expect to have job creation in the future. And of course, we need to consider the economics. Yeah, even though the economics is not the only criteria in selecting the technology. This is the situation with our nation. This is considered as post-oil nations. The peak of oil was obtained in 1977, and then now it's quite insecure. If you can see, this is 2025. And then this is 2050. Yeah. So without additional hydrocarbon, be it from gas, which are mostly in the east of Indonesia, offshore, we need to monetize the biomass and bioresources. Yeah. And because the coal is also quite limited, actually. Challenges, we are the largest importer of gasoline, and then we are also one of the largest importer of LPG. Yeah, this is approaching 80% LPG for residential cooking. But what we can do with these situations, we can try to optimize the other than the conventionals. Yeah, this is the conventional that we have, very limited, and then hopefully with the target to move from 8 to 25% in 2025. Yeah, goal from the government. We hope that we can optimize this liquid gas and electricity. So far, we have already biofuels, biomass for electricity generations, and bioenergy. Going a bit specific to bioenergy, so far we have national program, the oxygen, the oxygenates, the biodiesels, B30, and then we have also planning from Pertamina to have the hydrogenated vegetable oil. We expect to have it maybe after 5 years also. Even though also in regulation we have already the blending bioethanol to gasoline. The question is it bioenergy still expensive? Yeah. Of course, this is the homework for us, for the people who are working in energy sector, how to improve the technology and advancements in such a way that we can reduce the costs. There is a good news from Scandinavia. There is a company called Ørsted, which is now recently having better valuation than any oil companies. So if we see the technology status of bioenergy, we have in the future, there is algae. And then to some extent, we started the palm oil mill effluents to bioethane. There is one project, I think, from one company in Kalimantan reaching TRL 9 commercial. Gasifications, not yet. We are planning to have gasifications, Bakri and Pertamina, and then co-processing also Pertamina, sugarcane ethanol. This is regulation is there, but still limited. And what we have commercially now is the FAME, fatty ethyl methyl ester, and also the green diesel from vegetable oil. The scenario that we have, we hope that in the next 5 years, we will have the transition period in which that we will optimize our palm oil. However, in the long run, with the nature of palm oil, which is still commodity, the price is up and down, we need to consider also to have energy crops, kebun energy in the future. So with this, we can secure the supply, the feedstock, which is nowadays more expensive than the conventional crude oil. So palm oil has a strong role. We hope that non-edible oil will grow, and we need also to have more hydrogen in Indonesia. If we have energy crops in the future, we can split it into 3 options with the biodiesel, which is low capital, and then to green diesel, hydrodeoxygenations. It can be standalone or it can be attached to one of the refineries, and also the co-processing. Unfortunately, this is so far limited to 5 to 10% together with the conventional crude from from fossil fuels. Yeah. So with this scenario, we hope that the logistics, the cheaper feedstock will be expected, so we can create more jobs in the future. Biodiesel is national program, but still it is subsidized by the government around 3 trillion Indonesian rupiah per year. The problem is the feedstock. The feedstock is the refined bleached and deodorized palm oil, which is quite expensive. So we need to do homework in order to make this cheaper with different ways. And then the catalyst, still the homogeneous catalyst, which is corrosive sodium hydroxide. We are moving from homogeneous to heterogeneous, preferably to have solid acid catalysts, which are cheap from the waste. And if possible, we can also combine with the iron that we have in Indonesia. So these are the things to do to reduce the cost of biodiesel. Of course, there are some other technology. Basically, we can optimize our palm oil mill, by fixing the sterilizations in such a way that we can have industrial vegetable oil instead of refined bleach and deodorized palm oil. This is one strategy. And then the other strategy related to the byproduct, this is glycerol. We also spend quite some activities on how can we monetize this glycerol for something. With this, we expect that in the future there will be synergy between bio-based economy that we have with the circular economy. Yeah. Later I will show two types of circular economy from palm oil business and also with the mining industry. So here we hope that in the future we have enough non-edible oil from the energy crops. And then in the future we also have to utilize all of the waste that we have inside Indonesia. Yeah? Because nowadays there is tendency to export the solid waste, which is not really strategic for Indonesian economy. And of course, we need to have synergy between bioenergy and oil and gas, yeah? Because biodiesel need methanol. Methanol is basically from natural gas, from methane. Renewable diesel need the hydrogen. Hydrogen is also still from steam reforming of methane. And then we have, this is some of our activities to have synergy between bioenergy and petroleum refinery. In nowadays, basically, we are having the low capex biodiesel. In the future, this is already Pertamina plan to have the green diesel. For nowadays, the hydrogen can be obtained because this is hydrodeoxygenation. Hydrogen can be obtained from steam reforming of methane, but in the future, we can have so-called green hydrogen. Yeah, so green hydrogens can be obtained, for instance, in 2050, if we have hydrogen from water electrolysis, where the electricity is coming from windmills or from hydropower, etc. So for now, we need to try to optimize this palm oil feedstock that we have, even though now the price in the past few days is increasing, but we need to find solution because this is the feedstock which is available in Indonesia. We need to improve the technologies in such a way that the cost will be lower. Different routes should be applied for these biofuels because we are rich in agricultural waste. Yeah, we have a lot of waste. We have also potential from sugar refinery, even though we need to build more sugar refinery. And then the biogas, we start to have one company in Kalimantan, which is making from waste, from liquid waste, palm oil mill effluents to biogas, and then biogas to methane. And then they have packaging bio CNG. This also can be converted to electricity, but so far not so promising for electricity. But bio CNG economically it's good because we can get up to 14% internal rate of return, even though the capex is quite high. Yeah. So this some of the activities in the future if we want to convert the bio methane even further to DME, dimethyl ether. We have some activities in developing technologies for DME from biogas. Of course, the commercial one will come from coal. We received the announcement from PTBA and Pertamina, at least two sites, one in South Sumatra and one in Riau, to get the DME from coal. The key is basically the coal, the cheap coal, because the feedstock affect the economics. And then the last few minutes basically about emergency period, because now most of countries are in recessions. Yeah. And then there is also problems with geopolitics, so we need to prepare our emergency periods in recessions. In the future, we can consider pyrolysis and gasifications, but for the time being, it's also good to have national programs on solid fuels. This is something that we can do in the future. The cost is still related to the formation of tar. We need to solve this in order to have a better economic margin. And then, but The other option is basically to have solid fuels. Yeah, among other options, according to IRENA, the Renewable Energy Agency, the liquid biofuels has been proven to create jobs in Indonesia. Indonesia is having the same size like the United States. In US, they announced around 40 million people are losing their jobs. So we need to think about how can we create jobs. Then this is basically offering good facility to create green jobs. Yeah. And also this will strengthen the manpower in the agriculture area, which is also declining. There are also some activities in the future. We hope to combine the mining companies and the energy companies, because in mining we have a lot of waste which can be utilized as catalysts or solvents. So this also will improve the economics. And then with this, I would like to summarize that in the transition period, where we do not have enough hydrocarbon in Indonesia, we can still utilize this palm oil industry to obtain biodiesel, green diesels, biogasoline, and then we need also to consider the bioethanol, yeah, be it from corn or from molasses or from lignocellulose. There is a demand for low-cost deoxygenation and cracking, because so far this is with the hydrogen, and hydrogen in Indonesia is limited. We have gas, natural gas is also quite limited. We have a lot of waste. We have wastewater palm oil mill effluents from more than 700 palm oil mills in Indonesia, which can be converted to biogas and upgraded to bio CNG in order to reduce the import of LPG. And then we need also to put in our energy mix the solid fuels, because yeah, the future looks challenging in terms of the world recessions, etc. So this also will save many people in Indonesia. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I would like to return the floor to the moderator.
Okay, give a big applause to Prof. Oki, yeah, for the presentings about the way to transform the energy, yeah, by applying and accelerating the biofuels. And it aims to reduce, yeah, the energy dependency and how we diversify the sources of energy. Okay, for enriching our perspective, knowledge, and experiential learning, there will be an opportunity for the audience, yeah, raise your questions directly to Prof. Okay, yeah, please, the audience, raise your your questions to the presenters. Okay, while waiting the questions, I'd like to summarize a new concept of the circular economy. So Prof. Oki introduced energy transformations by developing circular economy in order to optimize the value not only for the economy but also for the society and environment. And I think it's quite authentic concepts here. How we transform the energy and give a more value not only for the economy but also for the society and environment. But there will be a number of challenges when we are talking about the renewable energy. From the technical aspects, there will be a challenge on the quality of energy sources, such as sustainability, durability, yeah, and distance to users, as well as the political issues, socio-political, like government policy, yeah, social acceptance, and also the economic value that imply to the affordability of the energy. I think there will be many issues that we need to discuss on this session. Please, the audience, raise your questions. No one? Okay, otherwise, let me ask some question to Prof. Oki. How do you address these concepts? I think this is quite interesting. Yeah. And how to harmonize into our policy. As we know, yeah, there are many issues on the policies. So when we are introducing a new concepts on the renewable energy, as an implication, we need to harmonize into the political aspects, such as the government policy, yeah, regulation, regulatory, and so on. And the second, uh, are you sure that this concept will be, yeah, I think it seems more effective, yeah, considering our situation in the post-pandemic. As we know, the affordability will be a main issues. So in the demand side, there will be decreasing level of the affordability of the society to absorb the energy. I think for the first two question, time is yours, Prof. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Hari Patria, Mr. Moderator. First, about the regulatory how to stimulate this bioenergy. In my opinion, there are few challenges that we have. The first one is the competition between food and fuels. With this challenge, basically, we need to have the dedicated energy crops. Yeah. At this moment, what we can do, basically, we can utilize some state-owned companies which are basically having the feedstock. Yeah, like PTPN. This is strategic to have a joint venture between PTPN and the off-taker of biofuels, which is so far Pertamina. So basically, if we can have synergic effect for the short term, it will be good enough to execute the bioenergy, because the key is for about the feedstock, and the feedstock, it can be done by simplifying the palm oil mill's effluents. Yeah, sorry, palm oil mill, pabrik kelapa sawit. Palm oil mill can be simplified in order to get cheaper feedstock, and then that will be good enough for Pertamina to execute green diesel, and also for many companies to have the biodiesel. And then the other options, basically important notes for the regulatory is how can we spread the wealth? Yeah, because so far the biodiesels projects are owned by many big companies, yeah, but not yet touching the lowest level of the society. So in the future, we can expect for the local government to have also um, potential suppliers for the biofuels. And then for the affordability, this is very interesting issues. especially now with the next coming year. At least we expect that until 2022, the next 2 years, the demand of oil price will not be higher, and then the world is still having to some extent the recessions. And then in order to activate the economy again, we need to have new centers, new economic centers, sentra ekonomi baru. New economic centers can be obtained by bioeconomy, and then basically the field in bioeconomy which is leading is bioenergy. So basically we can create jobs, and then with the jobs, of course, the affordability of some part of our society will be improved. And also, of course, we need to have our own technology. So with the technology that we have, the capital costs will be reduced because the more instruments can be fabricated in Indonesia with the lower operating costs. This is things uh, to achieve in such a way that we can have affordable biofuels. Indeed, this is quite challenging, but I think with the proper regulations and stimulus, it can be done. For instance, nowadays, if we want to have the bio CNG basically massively produced in Indonesia, we need to have good incentive for the companies which are already in the palm oil business. With this, they are willing to spend more on the capex. Basically, the government, the energy company can be the off-taker. So bio-CNG can be sold to Pertamina and then it will be distributed to the society. But the capex for the bio-CNG plant will be from the companies, from the private sectors. With this, I think it is possible to move from about 8% renewable energy nowadays in 2020 extremely to 25% in 2025, which is very difficult, I think, to achieve. But that's possible with proper incentive, because the basically the rate of return for the some of these biofuels and bioenergy like bio-CNG, the internal rate of return is quite high actually. It can be up to 14%. But who is going to spend money? Of course, the government is not having enough money for capital, so we need to involve private and also foreign investment. With this rate of return, I'm sure that with proper regulation, we can have enough players.
Wow, incredible, Prof. Okay, I think it's quite interesting issue. In addition,
The moderator. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good
Waalaikumsalam.
afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thanks to the organizer who invited me to share with you all in this very important session, very important conference, MICE. And congratulations to the ITV for this event and session. So what would like to share in this session is about the the green financing in Indonesia. Let me use share screen. Can be seen? Is it okay? No?
confirm, Pak. Yeah, let's start.
Confirm? Okay.
Yes, Pak.
Okay. Yeah. Our charge is green financing in Indonesia, policies, mechanism, opportunities, and challenge after the COVID-19 pandemic. I talk about the renewable energy, but this time, the organizer want to know about what is the possibilities and the policies, opportunities on the green financing in Indonesia. So, first of all, maybe I would like to share to you about the global trend on energy, and then see a bit on the greening the energy. And what about the renewable energy potential in Indonesia, and then the impact of greenhouse gas emission commitment from Indonesia, then come to opportunities and challenges, and the last one that we talk about the green financing in Indonesia. As you may know, that the global trend of energy and the commitment of Indonesia is first the energy transition from dominant fossil toward renewable energy by 2050. In this case, the Indonesia has set it Indonesian roadmap in order to work the renewable energy era by 2050. As you may know that in the year 2050, the world will facing and will use the renewable energy by about 86% in the power sector, and some of the countries maybe will achieve more than 90% is come from renewable energy. The commitment of Indonesia has been set in the Paris Agreement. The emission reduction target is 29% by 2020. And then the trend of energy disruption toward, e-mobility is a must. So the energy storage for smart energy system is also a big challenge for the future. But the problem in Indonesia is limited fund and human resource development. So maybe we are going to discuss on this in the last session. So what is the trend of the world? If you see on the right side, until 2025, the world energy use is dominated by fossil energy as well as nuclear. So we call this is a fossil and nuclear energy era. But after 2050, the world consumption of energy is mainly come from solar energy, if you see, after 2050. But in between, before 2050, we call it what we say is transition energy or energy transition, which is will diverge from fossil energy or nuclear energy into renewable energy. So in this case, from 2025 until 2050, the renewable energy portion will be dominant, and the energy fossil will slightly decrease by time to time. If you see here, the incentive is not named, but domestic industry must be developed to reduce the domestic price of renewable energy, because the use of renewable energy getting bigger, such as bioenergy, wind, water, and solar, while the use of fossil and nuclear is getting smaller because it is more expensive. So in the last, after 2050, you see the fossil and nuclear energy use is very, very small. If you see the portion is maybe less than 10%. How to green the energy? What we call it the greening of the energy. You may see our Indonesian target that has been set in our national energy policy, that by 2050, the target of renewable energy is about 31%. But by 2025, it's 23%. This is like a roadmap in order towards the renewable energy era by 2050. But this target has been set since 2006, and then has been powered by the national energy policy in the our government regulation number 79 in the year 2014 into 23% by 2025. But so far, if you see, the achievement of the renewable energy is still very low. It's only about 9.15% in the energy mix. But for the power, the renewable energy portion is about 12 to 13%. This is a diversification strategy and scenario of Indonesia since 1980 that has been developed. You see here, in 1990, tried to diversify the use of energy. Yeah, even the coal power plant is still used as a base to generate electricity in the countries. This is the share of state-owned enterprise in power generation capacity across selected countries. I got from OECD in 2018. If you see here, position of Indonesia is still dominated by coal here, by coal, but because mostly we use fossil energy. Actually, in our national energy policy, as you can see here, the renewable energy for the electricity should be composed of the hydro, geothermal, mini hydro, biomass, solar, bioenergy, and others renewable energy, including ocean energy. That means by 2025, we should have about 45 gigawatt come from renewable energy. But what happened to now is Indonesia is only contributed renewable energy about 10 gigawatt. So we still facing a lot of challenge to achieve 45 gigawatt by 2025. This is the renewable energy installed capacity so far. If you can see from the graph here, from 2008 is a very linear increasing, very linear. So it's not so big. Actually, we should have a good effort and a big effort to achieve 23% by 2025. This is achieving our renewable energy. If you see here, the portion of fossil fuel is slightly decreased, but on the other hand, the increasing of coal is very big, jumping from less than 15% before 2005, but right now it's about 60% in 2019. On the other hand, that we have Indonesia have the renewable energy potential is really big here. We are the country that have very complete renewable energy potential. If you see here, we have 6 clusters of renewable energy: ocean, geothermal, bioenergy, wind, hydro, solar. So not so many countries in the world that have a complete renewable energy potential such as Indonesia. But the problem is the characteristic and the challenge of renewable energy is capital intensive, high risk, human resource development is very limited, and high technology, and also high safety quality. In order to achieve this, so we should have, about something to do more and more than we did for the other type of energy. On the other hand, in the Paris Agreement that we already commit that by 2030 we are going to reduce the carbon emission target about 29% by 2030, or about 41% if there is an international support by 2030. What about the opportunities and the challenges? If you see from the COVID-19 impact to the energy sector, if you see here, the coal is very, very big impact, even in Indonesia and also for in the worldwide. But here is what I plotted here is from Europe here. Almost all of your countries impacted by COVID-19, mainly for coal, oil, gas, as well as the nuclear. But you see here, the green one, renewable energy is still, grow positively if compared to the other source of energy. Even the total energy demand is also reduced because of the COVID-19. Here, the reducing demand in transportation and its impact to the global oil demand, you see here, it's very, very much, but India is very, very, very big impacted by the COVID-19. But China is, you see, the February started very, very big impacted by, right now they recovered. US here is also starting to recover here. But how much fund is needed to support the renewable energy? If we are to try to achieve the renewable energy target that has been set by the our national energy policy, at least by 2025, we still need about 95 until 100 billion US dollar to invest in renewable energy. This is a really big amount of financial that we need. So we can supply from our national budget. We can supply also. We cannot supply also from our national private sector. So in this case, we still need the international support for this, 95 to 100 billion US dollar. But if we go through to 2050, that means more than 500 billion US dollar to invest in renewable energy. So this is a really big amount, So in this case, of course, we need a good policy, a good commitment, consistent of roadmap, etc. And also, we have to prepare our human resource development better than what we did in the past. What is the barrier and challenge for renewable energy development in regard to the financing aspect? If you see here, the supply renewable energy is characterized by, this is a newer technology, smaller project size, a longer lead time, high ratio of capital cost to operating cost, because we have to put in the early investment. So need for longer term financing at reasonable rate. And renewable energy project sponsor is less experienced, mainly is less experienced sponsor, but higher competition and operating risk. The renewable energy sponsor is also low level on own fund for investment cost contribution, which is come from equity. On the other hand, the demand awareness and willingness for the renewable energy is society is lacking of awareness or familiarity with renewable energy practices. And also we have a very limited cultural acceptance of renewable energy technologies. Almost all of the technologies is imported and very, very limited local content for the technology of renewable energy. Power grid operators are reluctant mainly to deal with decentralized suppliers of energy, and the electricity consumption is too low for financial sustainability, not enough for productive use. Yeah. So very low demand at relatively high initial cost. On the financing side, renewable energy is unfamiliar to finance due to lack of information. Mainly, many of the national bank, we need to support their position to familiarity with the renewable energy development. Renewable energy is also often considered as not attractive due to its high risk without adequate risk compensation in form of risk coverage instrument of higher return. And financing is hardly available for project and customers due to lack funds and or lack of instrument. What about the green financing in Indonesia? In our experiment on corporate financing of renewable energy in Indonesia, the source of capital is mainly come from philanthropists, from donor, from climate funds, green finance investor, Bank Pembangunan. Yeah, this is our national bank, Bank Pembangunan Multilateral, or other international institution or commercial bank, or including the sovereign wealth funds, institutional investor. And mostly the type of product of the green financing is we say here it's dana hibah or grant, dana pinjaman or loan, equity, technical assistance, capacity building, and also the finance for research and development. But here in Indonesia, since the last 10 years, Indonesia has established what we call SMI, Sarana Multi Infrastructure, non-bank institution. They already financed about 13 projects in hydro, solar, biomass, and also geothermal. And their role in this case is mainly including in developing solar photovoltaic in Sumba Timur. And also right now, the government facilitated with what we call it geothermal fund to finance the project in Waisano and Dieng geothermal project in Central Java. On the other hand, we also have what we call it Skema Pasar Karbon, cap and trade, which is this is an incentive to the clean energy, and as well as also the use of the fossil fuel subsidies, to reduce the subsidy. And before the 2000, our experience to finance the renewable energy is a very, very small scale renewable energy project in the rural area, and mostly in the form of grants for technical assistance, or we call it ODA. And then in the early stage of small scale renewable energy development, the government of Indonesia built rural electrification project based on revolving fund model. This is what we call it, the fund is run by SMI, with the SMI. And we have also a mini small hydropower development in Indonesia, which is constructed by PLN or an NGO. This is very small project. The government with financial support from government and donor development agencies to various activities like resource assessment, technical assistance, training, and strategic planning. But post 2000, in the last 20 years, the donors from international interest to support rural energy delivery or rural electrification through grant for pilot project, but very, very slowly declined in 2000s. The government of Indonesia has been able to allocate funding to construct the renewable energy technology, mostly in the rural electrification, through what we call it various ministerial budget, Ministry of Energy and Ministry of Village, and as well as Ministry of Small Medium Enterprise. The public funding for renewable energy development through government budget is more available and increasing, but its effectiveness to address financial needs for the quality of renewable is low. PLN actually is plays a role in supporting renewable energy development. On the other hand, USAID, Indonesia Clean Energy Development, what we call it ICE project, high force through biogas program, the Indonesia Domestic Biogas Program, what we call it normally in the renewable energy sector, we said BIRU. Yeah. BIRU is the Indonesia Domestic Biogas Program. Finland's Energy and Environment Partnership, Indonesia, EEP, but right now it has been finalized. We have GIZ from Germany to promote a low-cost renewable energy in Indonesia. And also we have ELCOR Indonesia to energize the development. Danida from Denmark, environmental support from 3, this is ESP3, UNDP's wind hydropower, etc., etc. This is the kind of our experience to finance the renewable energy post 2000 or in the last 20 years. This is the other kind of that we have here. We have a multilateral development bank. We have ADB, World Bank, Clean Cook Stop Program. Yeah. So we have also the commercial bank, which is come from AFD in consortium with the Bank Mandiri from Indonesia. But we have also but very, very limited amount of green financing, which is come from CSR, corporate social responsibility. Yeah. So the typical of classic financing instrument and structure is normally used equity finance provided by project developers or companies which is involved in this project. But the loan or debt finance provided through corporate or project finance loan from financial institution, which is come from commercial bank or investment bank or institutional investor. This is depends on the scale of the debt, the syndication of bank. You know, the bigger of debt, then the bigger syndication that we need from international. But the risk of capital that come from venture capitalists, private equity fund or strategic investor is like manufacturer is very, very limited. But some of the international institution, international financial institution need the insurance to cover some specific operation risk provided by the insurance companies to guarantee and provide by export credit agency through the Ministry of Finance of Republic of Indonesia. So what is the policies and mechanism of green financing need? You know, as you see here, the alternative financing for renewable energy project is first option is a mezzanine finance mechanism, which is normally mezzanine financing is basically debt capital that give the lender to right to convert the ownership or equity interest in the company. Or what we need the others is the third party financing, TPF, as a type of base loan sheet financing that is used to place debt financing. But for small scale or off-grid project, Financial options are usually limited to grant, consumer financing, and also participation finance as a debt that comes from several investors to fund small to medium scale project. This is not a big project, but for the bigger project is normally use the first option as a mezzanine finance mechanism. The alternative to support renewable energy project, which is what we call is green financing, the option is mainly direct PPA from developer to corporate. Direct PPA, that's the corporate direct to the developer and can be set into the consumer by using the PLN grid, what we call is power wheeling. And right now, mostly is used by the Renewable Energy 100 or RE 100. On the other source is what we need is in Indonesia is Renewable Energy Fund, which is, but we don't have any rule in this case to support the Renewable Energy Fund. Renewable Energy Fund is can be come from state budget, renewable energy export fee, or contribution from the Renewable Energy Fund, from grant, carbon tax, energy conservation, or using the compensate the gap of economic viability price of renewable energy, which is should be defined by the government of Indonesia. But we don't have such kind of rules. So what we propose is to be included in the new renewable energy law, which is initiated by the Parliament of Republic Indonesia in 2020. Another source of renewable energy or green financing is what we call is renewable energy certificate fund. This is also should be put in the renewable energy law. This is another kind of that we can support the renewable energy target, what we call is electricity toll grid. I think this is not really related to the renewable energy fund. This is such of the green fund that has been financed by PTSMI, Sarana Multi Infrastructure of Indonesia, the state-owned of the state-owned enterprise. This is another kind, what we call it geothermal fund management, geothermal resource risk mitigation grant has been allocated by ADB, by state budget, and also if you see here, source of fund, IBLD, GCF, CTF, PISP fund, this is come from Indonesia, or we can also use state-owned window or private window here. This is another kind of the geothermal fund, what we call it steel grant, but this is another one. Here is what we call it geothermal energy upstream development project, or geothermal fund management, or geothermal revolving fund. To develop geothermal in Waisano, East Nusa Tenggara for 30 megawatt. The amount is about 27 million US dollars. This is come from CTF, SMI, and also from Geothermal Energy Fund. I think that all that can I share with you, hopefully might be useful for the our discussion this afternoon. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Well, thanks, Surya Dharma. Yeah, let's give once again a big applause for Pak Surya Dharma. And we are turning into the Q&A sessions. And there were many questions, yeah, to Pak Surya Dharma. The first one is will from the Kemal, yeah, Kemal asking questions, realizing the constraints. First, what should government and private players do to ramp up RE adoptions? Considering diverse amount of energy potential in Indonesia and other external factors, in, in example, tech, technology, capital expenditure, and etc. And which RE subsectors, geo, wind, etc., will be more attractive to others? And please explain why.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's very hard to answer. You know, if you see the our
Yes, sir.
roadmap and our commitment for the renewable energy since 2006, uh, in that time that Indonesia would increase the use of renewable energy up to 17% by 2025. Then this roadmap has been revised by our new uh, energy policy, our national energy policy that has been established through government regulation. But the number is increased from 17 into 23% by 2023. Even on that time, the achievement is really, very, very challenging. But the government still put, to increase the target from 17% into 23%. Of course, uh, because of the, our dependency on the oil, might impact to the our national energy security. So that why the national energy plan is want to diversify the use of fossil into renewable energy. But on the other hand, not so easy, not so easy, since renewable energy at that time is mainly is treated unequal to the fossil energy. If you see, the fossil energy is always subsidized, but we don't have any subsidy to the renewable energy. Renewable energy should compete with the fossil subsidized energy. So how we can compete on that? This is the challenge for us. But I think right now it's we have to say the renewable energy is a must, since the world trend is also want to diversify and has been set by 2025, when 2050 that renewable energy portion should be more than 80% in the energy mix. So with the condition of the Indonesia so far, the fossil fuel or fossil reserve is tend to decrease. The oil lifetime is only about eight years, since 2020. So if we don't have any new reserve, that means by 2028 you have to depleted all of our oil reserve. The gas is about 18 years and the coal is about 46 years, calculated by University of Indonesia with this present condition energy use. So what should be done is we have to consistent with our national target, whatever we have to do, whatever the effort should be, the effort from the government and supporting from the international. Mainly the international always complain for the unequal treatment of renewable energy into fossil energy. So I think in the future we have to treat equality between fossil and renewable energy.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting issue, Pak Surya Dharma, and I think it's likely the paradoxical issue. Yeah, on one hand, government would like to increase our portion on the renewable energy, the 2025 and so on. But on the other hand, uh, there has been an equality treatment, yeah, on the policy, as we know that uh, the government, yeah, is likely to subsidize for the fossil fuels. So, but on the other hand, I would like to increase the portion of the renewable energy. So this is the paradoxical issues. I think there's many issues that we need to address with, yeah, Pak Surya Dharma. Thanks, Pak.
Yes.
Let's move to
Yeah.
the second questions from the Miftahul Siddiq. Dear Pak Surya, uh, are the big investment needed is for the fixed cost or the manufactured cost? I think it's quite
Fixed cost.
ambiguous here. Or the fixed cost
Yeah, yeah.
or variable
This is
cost. So
fixed.
as we know, the
Yeah,
manufactured
this is
cost is part of fixed cost, Pak.
yeah. The manufacture cost is included in the fixed cost, I think, because this is we put in the investment cost. Uh, it's quite different with the oil and gas. In oil and gas, we put that as a fuel cost, but here we don't have fuel cost in renewable energy because the development is integrated from upstream into downstream, from starting from exploration until the energy generating. So we have to put in one bucket all. So
Yeah.
so we can say that fixed cost all.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's clear. And let's move to the next question. Dear Pak Surya Dharma, recently many big companies are planning to enter Indonesia in order to invest in the battery industry, electric vehicle, I mean, industry due to our abundance of nickel resources. Do you think this will give a significant impact to our RE sector and help Indonesia to accelerate the RE growth? Time is yours, Surya Dharma.
Yeah, this is not really related, because of the depends on what kind of energy you are going to use for the electric vehicle. The electric vehicle, electricity can become from coal, can
Cool.
become
Cool.
from oil, can become
Yeah.
from gas, can become from nuclear, not really related, the battery storage. Uh, so I think we have to consistent with, since we have the potential is more than enough to generate the electricity for the country, we should consider and prioritize first renewable energy, then from the others, as has been mentioned, I think in the energy law is put the renewable energy in the first priority, but the problem is the implementation is not, is now. Uh, that's different story. So in the renewable energy law, if you see in the one of the paragraph mentioned about the to prioritize the use of renewable energy and the local energy uh, potential. That means mainly the local energy potential is renewable energy, because renewable energy is located almost in the rural area. So that means should be prioritized.
Okay, clear, Pak Surya Dharma. I think there will be a trade-off between sustainability and affordability. And in
Yeah.
fact, many developing countries focus on affordability instead of sustainability. We know that we like to adopt from the European countries or US that they have been transitioning their energy into the renewable energy, diversified to the geothermal, hydro, yeah, solar PV, and so on and so on. But many developing countries still focus on the affordability. So they still consume more on the fossil fuels, the coal, and the oil and gas. So as we know that uh, the level cost of the coal is the lowest, yeah, compared to other energy sources. Okay, let's to the last questions from Mona Natalia. What do you suggest about the change to renewable energy since the electricity price is still a lot higher than fossil energy such as coal? I think it's quite relevant to what we are discussing. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. First, we cannot say that affordability is the most important thing, but affordability can be treated, how to manage and develop the people capabilities to increase the economic capabilities of the people, instead of make the people still in the lower position, then make the energy should be also affordable by the poor people. We have to learn from India. We have to learn from Vietnam, from China. I think because they are transform the energy from mainly from fossil energy into renewable energy. As you see, the Vietnam in the last 2 or 3 years, I think they already uh, commissioned about 5,000 gigawatt from solar panel. So we already set actually more than 10 years ago, but Vietnam come later on, then they developed more than 5,000 megawatt of solar. Indonesia still only about less than 200 megawatt, less than 200 megawatt. That's sometimes how, they learn from Indonesia, but right now they pass Indonesia, they say bye-bye Indonesia. This afternoon, we are going to discuss and, with our colleague from Vietnam on this kind, how they can, pass very, very, very fast from Indonesia. So I think we should consistent, not only thinking about affordability.
Yep.
Once you say only the affordability and the people will be, stay in the lower position, never move into the middle or upper class, But what should do is we should increase the capabilities of the people by education, by economic increasement, etc. Then, but the energy, because the energy we cannot, stay for the lower, because all of the technology is international business. The international business, of course, will be impacted by the international activities, by the international technologies, by the international movement, the transportation from one to the other part of the world, So we cannot just treat only in our country. If you see, even in the Middle East, you know, who have, you know, a very, very huge amount of fossil, right now they develop the renewable energy. You know, UAE, yeah, Uni Emirat Arab, they develop solar panel. There's huge solar panel in Uni Emirat Arab now. Saudi Arabia, you know, they put in their desert, you know, the solar panel. That's they have to shift from oil into the renewable energy. You cannot stay, even you say, you know, the coal is the lowest part, but last month, you know, the Bank of the Japan and Korea say that they are going to stop to finance the coal project. So what happened to that? You know, we don't have enough money to support the, you know, the coal project. Even this is a very interesting market, you know, but the world trend is shifting now.
Yep. Yep. Thanks, Pak Surya Dharma. I wish
Yeah.
all participants enjoy these sessions. Yeah.
We go to the first slide, please. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Horace. So first of all, I will thanks to the committee, to the ITB committee that invited me as the speaker for this session, the energy economic session. And I already introduced by the moderator, Pak Hari, and I will talk about the conventional and renewable energy before and after COVID-19 and the comparison of benefit. First of all, next slide. First of all, we will look at the impact of the electricity cells. This is the impact of the electricity cells. It goes very low in around May, and the cumulative growth will be lower than 1% if we look up to September 2020. The lowest condition also happened in the biggest system in Indonesia, Jawa Bali system, and the growth was negative. This lower demand will have an impact of the future electricity demand. This is the first. The second one, we need to review the electricity infrastructure, the power plant, the substation, the transmission, and also the distribution project should be updated based on this condition. And right now, we still in the middle of discussion of publishing the newest RDPTL, and this RDPTL already consider the COVID-19 impact. So we can go next. This is what we have in the draft document. So it's still in the draft, and it would change in the publishing or in the published version. This projection, the easiest way to look at this projection is the demand projection will be held around 2 years. So what we will have or what we have in 2020 will happen in 2022. So it's like a setback, demand hold because of the pandemic. But in the moderate projection of electricity demand, we calculate that we will have rebound in 2022, and we hope what we have in the planning phase will be done in time, so we don't have any problem in the next year. So this is the projection. Can you go to the next slide? So this is the challenge of Indonesian power grid development. You can go next. So the first challenge will be the condition of geographical of Indonesia. You look at the archipelago country, and its island have power grid variability and very high variability. The electrical grid right now have 4 big system and around 16 small to medium system and hundreds of isolated system. So many system and it's archipelago, so it's sea-based, so it would be another challenge for us to do the interconnection. The biggest system is Jawa Madura Bali. The last peak load is around 28 gigawatt in 2019. And each system has different configuration of power plant based on the local and also what is the transmission configuration, transmission infrastructure. In Sumatra, we have 2075 kV and 500, but in Jawa Madura Bali, only 500 kV as the backbone. So different condition, different configuration. And the other hand, some places with weaker system has a bigger renewable energy potentials. So what is the main challenge to connect all of the island is the construction and the engineering with sea and the seabed condition, and also the economic benefit. It means that with low demand and high cost of submarine cable, we should get the best number of the economic benefit. This is important for us as a corporate company. So this condition will be the first challenge of electrical grid development. Can we go to the next slide? The second challenge is the 35 gigawatt project. In RPTL 2015 and 2024, we use the sales projection from the RUKN, the ESDM document. Is stated in the document in the RPTL 2015-2024 that we have almost the same projection in 2015 and 2018. Therefore, all the infrastructure we are based to this number. But the recent number, the actual number of demand projection is not as high as the plans. As we can see, the blue one is the actual condition. There are 2 graphs. The blue graph, it's realistic demand and realistic economic growth. The red one is RPTL 2015-2024. It consists of demand growth and economic growth. And the green one is based on the RPTL 2019-2028. So the big projection of demand is because 2 things. First off, the economic growth is very high, and then the second one is the elasticity also is very high, and in the actual condition is not that as high as we do in 1990 or before, because we can see the economy still grow as we want to have, but the electricity between economic growth and demand growth is not as big as before. Can we go to the next slide? So this kind of challenge and the 35 gigawatt is based on the RPTL 2015 demand projection, give us a big reserve margin. So up to 2023, most of the power plant is still thermal conventional. It's already included in 35 gigawatt project, and its base majority is the coal and gas, and also its IPP, independent power producer. So this is the challenge of load dispatch center to operate economic power system. I only show two biggest system in Indonesia, Jawa, Madura, Bali, and Sumatra. As we can see, Jawa have around 70 up to 60% of reserve margin, and Sumatra around 40 to 50% reserve margin. This is very high, and it's very challenging to the load dispatch center. Next slide. And the challenge already stated before, it's 23% of new and renewable energy, and we can see it's still low in this time, and there are several conditions that we try to do to achieve 23%. The first one is to do the co-firing, and then we accelerate the hydro and geothermal development. And the problem is if we delay the geothermal power plant by 1,000 megawatt, it should be replaced by 4,000 megawatt of solar PV because of the capacity factor of different power plant between geothermal and PV. And the next problem is the geothermal power plant is already included in FTP2 program in 2010 and 2014, government of Indonesia target, but the realization, the actual achievement is not as high as the target before. Okay, can we go next? So this is another strategy for PLN to develop the renewable energy for co-firing in coal-fired power plant. We need to consider the sustainability of the biomass supply in long term, and then the development of hydro power plant and geothermal power plant is take a long time to plan and also to construct, and in some places it will have a problem with environment and also permits. So that's the problem for us. We built a hydro and geothermal based on the based on the environment problem that we will face in the future, but we will have a problem also for permit from the environment ministry. And then the third one is we need to have a very large area to develop PV. This will be some problem because we still, or PLN still have to pay for the land acquisition price. It's different than the other country with high PV. Usually the land is already free or given by the government. And then the other problem will be the duck curve problem. If the rooftop PV contribute bigger than the PV utility scale. And then wind power also applicable for certain location with big system like Jawa is only good in a short part of Java Island. And then the fifth one is the low capacity factor. It means that we will build more capacity to get same number of fuel mix. The target for new and renewable energy is based on the energy, based on the fuel mix, not on the capacity. And then number 6, we already have the idea to build nuclear. It's a big size power plant with big capacity factor. It would have easy way to reach 23%, but until today, it's still the last option to develop the nuclear, and it would take a longer time and very high investment to develop. Okay, can we go next? So we can go to the benefit of conventional and renewable energy. Next. There are three conditions that I will present. In the short term, the condition is we have lower demand expectation, and the majority is conventional thermal power plant. But the benefit is we will have a big system, therefore we have a big or high system stiffness, and majority unit is dispatchable, and then we can develop the RE and also VRE, the variable renewable energy, by defining the requirement, development method, and hybrid system. So it's one of the benefit if we have right now conventional thermal power plant, we can maintain to build VRE based on the existing condition of thermal power plant. In the medium to long term, we will have high penetration of renewable energy, and also we still have the existing PPA with conventional IPP, with thermal-based IPP. To get the benefit from this condition, we need to start the ancillary service regulation. It means that every component in electricity could have its own price, could have been a commodity. So, as Pak Suryadharma said before, it would have same leverage if we have the ancillary service regulation. It means that electricity is not based on kilowatt hour, but it's based on the VAR, like the voltage, and then inertia, backup, and etc. So many things can be commodity for electricity. And then the long term, we will have the digitalization, distributed system, and then also crowded land. Therefore, we will start, or we will have to consider the distributed power plant. So we will look at the benefit of the distributed power plant. There are some benefit that we can do. First is the prosumer. We can also maintain the system, because if we make the distributed power plant, we can reduce the transmission project, because transmission project means very high social problem, but it will be reduced. And also with the Internet of Things, we can do like what Gojek or Grab do. We maintain the infrastructure, but the energy is between consumer. Okay, next. So we go to the first benefit, first condition, how we define VRE requirement, development method, and hybrid system. Next. So based on the REPTL, we have this requirement. The first one is grid code revision, and also enforcement to everyone that use our grid. Therefore, all of the dispatch center can make economic and sustainable, and also reliable power system. The second and third one is already included in grid code, but right now most of our system does not have this control enable. in the worldwide system. Most of the system already have LFC or already have the AGC, but in Indonesia, if I look at the Jawa Bali system, it's still ongoing enforcement for every power plant to have LFC and AGC. This means that if we have LFC and AGC, we can have a bigger variable renewable energy, because it put them the change the intermittency of the power plant. The second one is the weather monitoring system. So some of the dispatch center already have MOU with the weather BMKG from the government. And then the second one is we need to have the flexible generation. And as we know that the battery storage already have a good price right now, it would have a bigger potential to have a bigger VRE, because we will need this kind of flexible or fast response source. And then the number 7, we need the technical minimum loading. So the coal-fired power plant and the geothermal is a base load unit. Therefore, if we have VRE in the like PV in the noon, it would reduce the technical minimum loading. So our power plant, our conventional power plant should have lower technical minimum loading. And then for the inverter, it should have this kind of feature, the LVRT, the LFRT, and frequency control. So next. So this is what happens if we have weather forecast embedded to the PV and wind. We will have a good dam of frequency system if we have a lower or smaller error of the prediction and the actual production of VRE. Next. So if we have a high ramping rate power plant, it also can give us a bigger or bigger dam of the system. So the production drop, as you can see, is low. But if we have another power plant that could be ramped up, it will give a big higher frequency for the drop. Next. And then if we have higher inertia, like large cell conventional thermal generator, or maybe some inverter technology that could mimic the thermal power generator, virtual inertia, and also in some places already in system worldwide already installed the scattered synchronous condenser. It would give a bigger system stiffness. Therefore, we can have bigger VRE. But the problem is we will operate most of the power plant in not very optimal loading. Like as we can see in the CFPP and GOPP is only like 70%, but it was needed just to maintain the inertia, system inertia. Next. This is the problem of technical minimum loading. If we have lower TML, it would have been a flexible system. Therefore, if we have a bigger solar, both utility scale or PV rooftop, it will give a good flexibility to the system. And this kind of challenge should be included in the PPA for base unit like coal-fired power plant and geothermal power plant, both for technical and also for contractual matters. And also the gas contract should also be changed to suit the rooftop operational scheme. Next. The other feature for the inverter is the low voltage drive-through capability. The idea is when we have a problem not in the VRE but in other conventional power plant, the VRE should withstand itself, so it not also go out. So if we have a power plant, 600 megawatt power plant, if it's tripped or out from the system, the PV and the wind should not also trip, because if both of them is tripped, it would give a very bad condition to the system. So this is a normal feature that already included in inverter, but it should be asked to be included in the PPA. Next slide, please. Okay, so the second one is we need to do the potency using layering in the GIS. We should look at the slope, river and lake, roads, forestry, and solar irradiation, because for what I look at the development of VRE, especially for the solar, it's not only about the solar irradiation. There are so many aspects, and therefore we should make this kind of mapping, this kind of layering to look at the potency. As you can see, I already make some in Bali. The red one is the good place for the PV, not only because of the solar irradiation, but also in the 5 parameter. There are 5 substations that has a good potency for the development of solar. Can we go next? So after that, we should look at the system readiness using this distribution or this stochastic method. We don't look at the system stiffness as a peak load. So it means that even though it has a big peak load, if the configuration of power plant is not very scattered, it will have a bigger frequency drop than the other configuration of power plant. This kind of method could have the average condition, not the biggest, but the average condition that the system can develop. This calculation show us that in Bali we can build up to 50 megawatt without any problem to the system. And then next. After that, every places or every combination should be checked for the steady state condition. We look at the losses, we look at the transmission loading, we look at the voltage. It means that if we need to build some PV, it could give us also a good benefit, not only the megawatt or megawatt hour, but also the voltage, and then reduce the losses and some and everything that can be beneficial for the development. The next. The second one is, the third one is how we make the hybrid power system. It could have beneficial also. So the idea is how to reduce the diesel, but in some place it still have a good price. Therefore, we need to get the optimal place of the combination between PV and diesel. We can go next. Next slide, please. So this is one of the result of the calculation. We will have the hybrid 15 megawatt with the combination of PV, diesel, and battery, and we can pick which penetration level, low level or medium level, and also we will have the price, the tariff as optimum as possible. Okay, we can go next. So the medium and long term would be ancillary service. We can go next. This is the ancillary service in Europe. So it have connection codes, operational codes, and also market codes. This kind of codes could could manage the capacity allocation, the congestion management, also electricity balancing. And this kind of codes, this kind of market codes could increase the VRE, the renewable energy penetration, but also maintain the price of the power grid production. Okay, we can go next. So this is what the proposed ancillary service scheme we will have. So it should have reactive power unbundling tariff for IPP. So it means that the benefit of like PV with inverter could have another benefit, not only the kilowatt hour, but also mega farm and maintaining the voltage. We will have also the captive power mechanism. It means that every power plant, every scattered power plant has its own value. So if we look at current condition, we only look at the efficiency of bigger power plant. We don't look at the distributed. But with captive power mechanism, this kind of benefit, the scattered one, will give a good benefit for development. And then we also have the reactive power for economic.
Sorry, Pak Marbun.
Yeah.
There will be 5 minutes left. Yeah.
Okay.
Please accelerate.
And okay, and then the risk of accumulants also should be economic aspect. You can go next. Okay. So based on the calculation, based on the proposed, the existing conventional power plant also have benefit for system. If we already have a lower price for the PV, but how about the conventional power plant still have a benefit because it could be a synchronous condenser. It could have maintain the voltage, maintain the reactive power in the system. And then next. Also, it could maintain the system inertia. So it means that in the long run, if we have an ancillary service regulation, we can look at the different benefit of each power plant, not only based on the kilowatt hour or heat rate or efficiency, but so many things that could be provided by another type of power plant. Then next. So in the very long term, we should look at the centralized versus distributed system development. We can go next. So it means that in demand projection, we will have energy conservation technology, steady state growth, but it still have a good potential to build a new power plant. because in the generation expansion, we should look at the prosumer, also the PV rooftop, and the existing power plants still have a benefit as synchronous condenser or as backup system. And the transmission expansion also have different method, because if we have scattered power plant, it will give higher reliability and higher resiliency. Therefore, the major point of transmission expansion is about the advanced and integrated for control center. So I think that's all for me. I will give back to the moderator, Pak Hari. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Musa Marbun. There was a lot of insights, experience, yeah, and the ideas for capturing opportunity during and post-pandemic. I think it should be a lot of questions, but is there anyone who would like to raise the questions directly? Okay, let me elaborate for a while, Pak, while waiting the audience deliver their questions. During the pandemic, there will be declining in the utilization of the power plant, the facilities, and so on. And my question is, how the PLN address this challenge? Yeah. So how the PLN maintain the utilization rate? In fact, that when the utilization rate is likely to decline or decrease, yeah, so the average cost become higher. So how do you address or how what you suggest for this kind of the problem, Pak?
So it was a good question, thank you. But for me, that this kind of problem we will have if we still have this form of power market, when everything single buyer, where everything is based on the kilowatt hour, as you can say that about utilization rate. It means that we will have higher kilowatt hour, we will have higher rupiah per kilowatt hour tariff. But this kind of problem will change if every or each power plant has its own ancillary service market. It means that if we have this power plant like PV, it's have a good support for voltage in the scattered area. It will have a good price because it will give benefit to maintain our system in other way, because as you can see that every consumer needs a good electricity. Sometimes they don't look at, is it PV utility scale or PV rooftop, or maybe wind, or maybe coal. They doesn't want to know about that, but they need good electricity or good power quality. And with this kind of ancillary service, it would give a good calculation for each benefit for every power plant. So the utilization rate will be only one of the problem. Like in Europe, they have the backup service. It means that they have a very expensive price they have diesel for the backup. But when there are some problem like blackout, big blackout, this kind of power plant will be operated, even though it's expensive, but it was necessary. So that's kind of market should have be a good solution for what we have right now. That's my answer.
Yeah, thanks for your insightful explanation, Pak Musa Barbun. Okay, audience, you have any questions? Please inform me. Okay, maybe for the last question, Pak, I'd like to elaborate more on the issues of renewable. So, as the issues on the international conference, yeah, this international conference this afternoon, we'd like to leverage the sustainability of the renewable energy. What do you think about the recent and after the pandemic situations? Are you sure that we can fulfill our national target, yeah, in the 2025, yeah, in the proportion of the renewable energy? And in fact, that yeah, the affordability is the key issues until right now. So it is a problematic issue, yeah. So the trade-off between the sustainability and the affordability. So the PLN actually absorb, and the first priority comes from the coal repair. So are you sure that we can fulfill the target for the energy mix in the 2025?
Okay, thank you. Another good question. So, as my presentation said that we already have ongoing program, the 35 gigawatt program, and then it's based on coal power plant and IPP. This one will be the challenge because we should maintain between the new power plant, our existing power plant, and the renewable power plant. But there are some strategy that we already make, but it means that the strategy is not based on PLN itself. It should have a very or comprehensive teamwork between PLN, between the developer, and also government, how to reach the number. I will quote from Pak Surya Dharma presentation that in other places the land acquisition is already free from the government. Therefore, when you say the affordability, it would be good affordability because PLN or pass through to the consumer only pay for the EPC cost for the solar. Therefore, it would be a lower tariff, something like that. So, but if it's only based on single work by PLN, I don't think we can get a good progress because most of the power plant like geothermal is also IPP based. It means the developer also have certain job in this kind of target. Maybe that's my answer.
Okay. Okay, well, thanks for your explanation, Pak Musa Marbun. I wish the audience, yeah, can enjoy these sessions and get the insights, informations, and ideas, yeah, on our renewable energy and strategic planning in the future. Okay, again, give a big applause to all of us. Okay, let's start.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, salam sejahtera. Thank you to the MICES 2020, and especially the moderator for the opportunity given to us. My name is Eric Swandi, student of Energy Security Master Program in Indonesia Defense University. This time I will present our paper entitled Understanding Gas Price, an Overview Regulation and Component Affecting in the Indonesia Natural Gas Prices. Our presentation outline consists of introduction, natural gas market, determination gas price, and end with conclusion and suggestion in accordance with the composition contained in our paper that we have submitted. Starting our presentation as introduction, we divide into the 3 chapters. The first is background. The background of this research is the economy policy shifted the natural gas paradigm, which was previously a commodity that became national economic growth, added value creation, and labor absorption. Natural gas, as we know, the natural gas is the third primary energy used in Indonesia after oil and coal. In electricity, natural gas offer low construction and fuel costs. For the fertilizer and petrochemical industry, natural gas is a raw and support material that has many advantages. And the background number 2, the price of natural gas affect the upstream oil and gas industry. The determination of the gas price of $6 MMBTU is troublesome for contractor of cooperation contract. We call K3S. On the other hand, the price of natural gas as fuel contribute 23% of total production costs in steel industry. Even when it functions as raw material, the portion can reach 70% as in fertilizer industry. So the price of natural gas determines the price and competitiveness of industrial product. Research purpose and method. A good understanding of natural gas pricing is essential for business actor because it can help to consider business decision. This paper provides a systematic and comprehensive content analysis and literature study. We serve to study from all binding regulation, literature study, and in-depth investigation. We did the interview with experts who have an understanding of Indonesian gas price so that the study can be confirmed to repeated remulation. Okay, the next session, natural gas market. In this section, we will review the natural gas business chain in Indonesia. Each stage of the business chain impact the natural gas price. Besides, the policy of natural gas use also become the primary determinant gas price for the end consumer. Number 1, Indonesia gas utilization. One of the national development agendas contained in the RPJMN, the government will strengthen economic resilience by optimizing production and increasing the use of domestic natural gas. Domestic use of natural gas has increased by an average 7.8% annually, and the government target domestic natural gas utilization increase from 2014 by 19% of the total national energy mix to 24% in 2050. And then Indonesian gas balance and natural gas structure. Indonesian natural gas reserve as of January 2019 reached 70.29 TSCF. In keeping the domestic gas supply, the government and K3S are trying to develop several upstream natural gas projects, including Isnatuna, Jambaran Tiung Biru, IDD, Tangguh Train 3, Abadi Field, or Masela, and the others. The utilization of natural gas is very dependent on infrastructure as well as the transmission and distribution pipeline that connect gas source to consumer. Infrastructure are the key to the meeting Indonesia gas demand that to has option bring the gas or LNG to gas demand or build demand to the gas supply, near the gas supply. The government through the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources Decree has stipulated the master plan for national gas transmission and distribution network. This master plan is a reference in developing natural gas infrastructure in the future. And then the national gas concession chain can be divided into 5 groups of activity. Namely, number 1, suppliers consist of producer K3S, it means, and commercial enterprise that import natural gas. Number 2, processing business activity that companies engage in purifying, refinery, enhancing the quality and added value of natural gas, such as producing gas fuel, LPG, CNG, and LNG. And then transportation business, they have to transport natural gas from source, storage, or processing place. The transportation business entities are usually called transporter. Number 4, storage business activity. It means receiving, collecting, storing, and releasing gas fuel and processing product. And the last one, commercial business activity, who buy natural gas from gas supplier from K3S and then distribute and sell to consumer for obtaining profit. The natural gas user and priority scale. The allocation and utilization of natural gas for domestic needs is carried out in the order of priority as follows. Number 1, supporting government program, provision for transportation, household, it means city gas, and small customer. Number 2, increasing national oil and gas production used to enhance oil recovery. And then fertilizer industry, natural gas-based industry, it means industry that use gas as raw material. And number 5, electricity or power generation. And number 6, industry that use gas as fuel. This priority sequence does not indicate the ranking of the amount of natural gas allocation. However, that order is based on the urgency of domestic needs. Determination of new export sales, or extension of LNG or gas export must pay attention to domestic needs according to this priority scale. Then pricing type and the gas sale and purchase agreement. The gas sale and purchase agreement, or we call GSA, mainly contain the volume of natural gas delivery, the point of delivery, and the price of gas. The price of natural gas in the GSA can be divided into 4 types, as shown in the following table. Fixed price, buyer the type of generation and majority industry, and used in the short-term gas trading. Number 2, regulated by government, generally under baseline price. It used in government programs such as city gas and transportation. And then escalation price, widely used for buyer of type of power generation, industrial, and some fertilizer plant. And number 4, formulated by index with ICP, used for buyer in the upstream oil lifting, support oil lifting, and refinery business. And then formulated index with Brent crude or GCC, Japanese crude cocktail, commonly used to spot LNG export or medium-term contract. And the last one is associated with the price of the product, used for small number of specific industry, such as referring to the price of ammonia, urea, and steel. In general, the Indonesia natural gas price can be divided into 2 groups, namely the upstream, the red one, the upstream gas price, and the downstream price, the green one. Then the downstream gas price is the gas price, upstream gas price at the end user after editing infrastructure management fee and trade cost. What is infrastructure management fee and trade cost? We have discussed in the next slide. Then, and the natural gas transaction is carried out the point of delivery between the producer of the supplier and the consumer. In sales of natural gas through pipeline, the delivery point is generally located at the wellhead. However, it can be outside in the wellhead, namely the dedicated upstream pipeline. And meanwhile, there are two models for LNG sales, namely DES, delivery as ship, or FOB, free on board. And the determination of natural gas price is carried out with these three considerations as this table. The field economy, the determinants, the field economy or the economic of upstream project is determined as the baseline of natural gas price. It used to ensure the sustainability of upstream oil and gas investment. And then number two, the selling price is consideration for the upper limit of natural gas price for domestic. If domestic consumer cannot meet the economy in the field, the economy in the upstream project, the contractor can export. And number three, the price for public service obligation is the price for the city gas program, household, and the transportation or BBG, which is below the market price, below the baseline price. Now we present the upstream gas price in this slide by referring to the applicable regulation. Number one is gas price for government program. Currently, there are still no binding and standard rules. The upper gas price for city gas and transportation is set at 4.72 MMBTU. And gas price for oil lifting, to use of natural gas to increase national oil production is defined as an effort to increase production in support of national gas availability. It use connection with production makes the gas price formulated with the Indonesian oil price. The gas price for electricity and certain industry we will discuss in the next slide. And gas price for another industry and export, the determination of the natural gas for these two consumers takes into account to economical price, the surrounding natural gas price, and the added value of its utilization. Determination of buyer and gas price can be done using BUT contest method or tender process. Okay, and then the next slide is the gas price for certain industry and electricity. In April 2020, the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources issued a regulation as legal basis for lowering gas price for specific industry, it's 7 industry and electricity, and repeal previous regulation decrease. In the we can see in this table a simplification of natural gas price for electricity. The upstream gas price is $4.5 per MMBTU, and gas price adjustments do not affect KTGS revenue because the reduction in revenue will be deducted from the government share. And the midstream, transportation, and refinery and the others, maximum price is $1.5 per MMBTU, and business entity can request incentive. And the other for customer, electricity sector and certain industry, the gas price in their plan gate is $6 per MMBTU. To reduction of subsidy for electricity fertilizer to added value, the added value evaluation will be carried out periodically. And the last one, the downstream component of downstream gas price. The downstream natural gas price is divided into the component, namely infrastructure management costs and trade costs. Infrastructure management costs include transportation through transmission, distribution pipeline, distribution of dedicated downstream pipeline costs, natural gas liquefaction, compression, regasification, storage, and transportation of LNG on CNG. And number two, trading costs represent commodity management costs, consumer management costs, marketing costs, risk costs, and trade margin. A part of these two components, downstream business entity are also subject to business activity fee. The tariff of transportation natural gas pipeline is regulated and determined by the regulator agency or BPH Migas. The tariff determines natural gas owner interest, business entity holding oil and gas transportation business permit, and consumer of natural gas. I cannot explain this more because the time is limited. And then the conclusion, that the price of Indonesian gas price is highly dependent on the policy issued by the government. This model was triggered by the upstream oil and gas production sharing contract scheme, which was influenced by gross revenue of natural gas sales. For electricity, number two, for electricity and specific industry, starting April 2020, more competitive rate will be set to support the economy. This price is below the economical price, and the difference in reduction is taken from the government share. In the use of natural gas for other sector, the government is more flexible in setting upstream natural gas price except for government program. In the downstream sector price, in the downstream sector, pricing for transportation, distribution, and trade fee is determined by the upper limit price. Meanwhile, for the other infrastructure management, file price are used based on business entity report. This regulation make the natural gas infrastructure business rigid and challenging to develop. On the other hand, many risk factors will be faced by business entities, such as delay in upstream oil and gas project and demand. The increment of upstream gas price occur because the increasing in ICP, increasing through field economy, and escalation factor of the price in JSA. That's all my presentation. The floor is back to the moderator, please. Thank you.
Well, thanks to Agiswandi for your insightful explanation and presentations. It's quite interesting. And there is a question from the Halimah Sadia. Does the price of natural gas for the same consumer in all areas of Indonesia get the same price? For instance, the gas price for fertilizer plant in Kalimantan and in Sumatra, is it the same? Okay, please answer.
Okay. Just before the presentation, for the some consumer, the answer is yes. They get the same price, as, such as the consumer government program, central industries, and electricity, because these three consumer, the price has been determined, regulated from the beginning by the government. Meanwhile, other consumers, such as for support oil lifting, other industries, export, must be above the economic upstream project and can use tender process or maybe beauty contest.
Okay, great answer, Eric Spandi. I think actually there will be a different treatment, yeah, and top priority for the oil lifting, fertilizer, and power plant So the government actually regulate the price for the three key sectors, yeah, that
Yes.
associate with the social interests, yeah, to our society. While the gas price for the industry might vary, yeah, might be various, yeah, might be different, yeah, from the one to another industries. But I think the spirit is to regulate the price and make more competitiveness to our industry. Okay, thanks, Eric Iswandi. Give a big applause to Eric Iswandi. Okay, let's to move to the second presenter, Putri Astuti Yusgantoro.
Ladies and gentlemen, sorry for the trouble. Thank you for attending to my presentation session. I'm truly honored. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Masita Yusindi, and you can call me Ayu. I'm a researcher from Purnama Skintoro Center. Today, I'm going to talk about our recent study about feasibility study of flare gas utilization through small-scale LNG in South Sumatra, Indonesia. This is quite a long title, but please allow me to explain it to you in more detail. Next slide, please. And again. So what is flare gas? Maybe some of you are already familiar with this terminology, but some don't. So next slide. According to our understanding, flare gas is an excess gas from hydrocarbon production, which can no longer be recovered or recycled. Next. It is usually consists of methane as a dominant composition, around about 80%. And then there are also propane, butane, ethane, and other gases such as sulfuric acid and other sulfur compound. Basically, the composition itself is very similar with the natural gas. And then the next question is, so why it should be flared then? Why not just sell it like natural gas? Next slide. There are at least 3 reasons why the flare gas is burned off. First, the flare gas is usually economically unattractive, so the investors are unwilling to construct production facilities as it only generates a small revenue. It especially could be found in the oil field that has associated gas, means that there are gas trapped in their oil. The gas should be separated from the oil so that the oil could be sold and processed, while the gas itself actually could be sold as a natural gas, as I mentioned earlier, because actually it's very similar with the natural gas. However, usually the volume of gas is very small, but it requires high capital and operating costs. So the margin generated is very minimal, not to mention the fact that it is hard to find a buyer with the high uncertainty of supply. That's why many companies prefer to flare it rather than just sell it. And the second, some gas should be flared as a safety reason. Some oil and gas fields burn flare gas to maintain pressure and release risk of explosion from simply venting large amount of reactive gases. And the third, releasing the excess gas directly to open air is believed to give more harmful to the environment. That's why companies are instructed to flare it rather than just release it to the open air. And next. Now, where is the major flaring taking place? According to the World Bank report in 2019, between 2013 to 2017, Russia is the biggest flaring countries, followed by Iraq, Iran, and the United States. Indonesia itself is in the 15th rank out of the top 30 gas flaring countries in the world. Next. And actually, the gas could be used for various purposes. But according to the MEME regulation number 32 of 2017, the flare gas can be utilized but not limited to, first, to power plant. This usually used as a power generation source in the field. And second, city gas, LNG, CNG, DME, and others. Because basically the composition itself, again, is very similar with the natural gas. The problem is how to make it profitable enough are interesting enough to be utilized by the investor. So that's what led us to our objective. Next. Next. Okay, so this is objective of the study. The study aims to conduct an assessment of economic feasibility of developing an SSLNG or small-scale LNG from flare gas. We studied an oil field in South Sumatra with associated gas content in their crude oil. The associated gas is actually already used as a power generator source in the field, but there is still excess gas left that usually burn off as the flare gas. The excess gas is the flare gas that we are planning to utilize as SSLNG, and we try to calculate their profitability. And the economic assessment is conducted into three main steps. First, the profitability analysis. Second, the sensitivity analysis. And the third is the scenario analysis. Lastly, then we can analyze the result. Next. Okay. As mentioned earlier, we used three method analysis that were done sequentially. First, the profitability analysis, then followed by the sensitivity analysis, and lastly, the scenario analysis. Next. So this is the profitability analysis. This analysis was conducted to analyze the profitability of the SSLNG development. We analyzed the NPV or net present value, the IRR or interest rate of return, and the PP or the payback period. We also make several assumptions to be put in our calculation, as you can see on the table. First, we set the flare gas price with the price around 0.35 US dollar per MMBTU, and we use interest rate about 10%. Exchange rate 1 US dollar equal with 14,500 rupiah. We set the LNG selling price 6 US dollar per MMBTU, and the total OPEX is around 20 million US dollar, and the total CAPEX is around 10 million US dollar. And in our calculation, we also already include the depreciation cost and also taxable income of 25% according to the existing law. Next slide. So this is the estimation of average flare gas production per year. As we could see, the volume of flare gas is considered low as it mostly still below 3 mmSCFD. And the average of flare gas for 10-year project is about 1.79 mmSCFD, with the peak production occurred in 2024 or the fourth year of the project if the project is started in 2021. And next. Okay, then we conduct a sensitivity analysis by evaluating 5 variables, as you can see on the left side. First is the average flare gas production, and second we have flare gas price, LNG selling price, change in CAPEX, and change in OPEX. We studied the sensitivity degree of each variable against two factors. First, the NPV, and the second is the IRR. We also try to find the minimum and maximum point of each variable to be able to achieve positive NPV, 10% IRR, and 14% IRR if we change it alone, while the other variable are ceteris paribus or same with the previous assumption. Next slide, please. And last, we perform the scenario analysis by integrating external factors such as existing regulation and economic assumption to determine whether this SSLNG project is still possible to be continued in the study area. And as for the scenario analysis, we consider three external factors. First, the MEME regulation number 32 of 2017. According to this regulation, the gas flaring buyer shall be set through tender by SKK Migas with the price between 0.35 until 3.67 per MMBTU, which means that according to this regulation, our flare gas price should not be lower than 0.35 US dollar per MMBTU. And our second external factor is that we have a presidential regulation, MMR regulation, and then MMR decree, which all of them already set the new natural gas maximum price of $6 per MMBTU for several industries. Although these regulations are yet to cover all the natural gas end user, this benchmark price should be considered to guarantee the market competitiveness and also to attract buyers. So we should put the LNG selling price to be maximum $6 per MMBTU in the plan gate. And the last external factor is that based on our interview with business expert, the maximum capex decrease is only 40%. We cannot decrease the capex more than 40%. And then after we know all of these external factor, then we select and modify these three variables. We set the capex, LNG selling price, and the flare gas price, and we try to find the best formula between these three variables so that we could generate a positive NPV and 14% IRR. Next. Okay, so let's look at the results. Next. These slides show the percentage of CAPEX and OPEX component that were used in this study. Based on our calculation, processing facilities will dominate the CAPEX by taking 82% of the overall CAPEX. Of course, the reduction of processing facility would significantly increase the profitability of this project. Meanwhile, on the OPEX side, transportation costs will take more than half of the overall SSLNG project OPEX, followed by storage costs and flare gas price. However, since the transportation cost is dependent on the distance between the buyer and SSLNG location plan, it is unlikely to be adjusted unless we relocate the SSLNG plant. And also for the storage, it is very dependent on the flare gas volume, so it is also unlikely to be adjusted. Therefore, other OPEX components such as flare gas price should be the target of adjustment to reduce the OPEX. Next slide. And this is the cash flow for the overall project. We use a cash flow projection in 10-year period to evaluate the project profitability. This figure shows that the SSLNG project will start to generate profit in 2027 if the LNG production start in January 2021. And according to our calculation, the IRR will be 7% and the NPV will be around $800,000. Well, according to our study, IRR should be above the assumed interest rate to be considered as an economically attractive project or feasible project. Thus, according to this result, we think that this project is still economically unattractive. However, there are still possibility to achieve higher IRR, maybe up to 14%, if some variable can be adjusted. That's why we conduct sensitivity as well as scenario analysis to see which variable should be adjusted and on what degree it should be changed. Next slide, please. So this is the sensitivity analysis result. This is the result for the average flare gas production sensitivity analysis. As previously stated, that the projected average flare gas production is 1.79 mmCFD within a 10-year period. However, the sensitivity analysis showed that the projected average flare gas production should be more than 1.97 mmSCFD to make the project have an IRR above 10%. And to reach the desired IRR of 14%, the average flare gas production should reach 2.15 mmCFD or 20% more from our initial assumption. Meanwhile, the slight decrease of the average flare gas production to, let's say, 1.7 mmSCFD could generate negative NPV. This makes the volume of flare gas production become overly sensitive to the project profitability. However, Since the volume of flare gas is related to the oil and gas field capacity and production capabilities, it is unlikely to be easily adjusted, let alone increase it, unless there is a new discovery in the field. Next slide. This is the sensitivity analysis of flare gas price. The results show that the flare gas price is one of the most sensitive variable with the change. However, it is impossible to achieve the desired IRR by achieve this desired IRR by only changing the flare gas price only, because even the zero flare gas price, which means that the flare gas did not have any value at all, the IRR still unable to surpass its interest rate of 10%. Thus, it is very important to adjust other variables along with the flare gas price adjustment. Next slide. Okay, so this is the sensitivity analysis for LNG selling price. The result is that LNG should be sold above 6.8 US dollar per MMBTU to exceed the discount rate of 10%, and should be sold at the higher price at around 8 US dollar per MMBTU to reach 14% IRR. This means that although the increase of LNG selling price could help this project to reach desired IRR of 14%, the required price will lower the competitiveness as it is significantly higher than the market price. Next slide. So this is the CAPEX change sensitivity analysis. It is found that the CAPEX need to be reduced from about 10 million US dollar to 8 million US dollar, or 20% decrease from the initial calculation to surpass the 10% interest rate. And it should be decreased further to about 14% from the initial calculation, or about 6 million US dollar to reach 14% IRR. Next slide. And this is the last sensitivity analysis. This figure showed the impact of OPEX change to NPV and IRR. This result showed that the OPEX should be reduced from 20 million US dollar to 16 million US dollar, or 20% from the initial calculation, so that the IRR can surpass the discount rate of 10%. Meanwhile, we found that the OPEX has to be decreased by more than 50% from our initial calculation, from the 20 million US dollar to 10 million US dollar to achieve the desired IRR of 14%. Thus, CAPEX variable is proven to be more realistic to be adjusted to achieve an IRR of 14% for this project, because reducing 50% of the OPEX is probably impossible to be done. Next slide. Now, this is the scenario analysis. The variable used in this scenario analysis are solely on the flare gas price, LNG selling price, and change in CAPEX. Why we choose these three variables? Because we consider it is to be easily adjusted to reach the desired economic criteria of 14% IRR, and because of these three variables as based on negotiation, so it is negotiable. And as you can see in this table, in the right side, show the 24 scenario analysis that we have gathered. So all of these 24 scenario are the required number that need to be fulfilled in order to reach 14% IRR. So all of this scenario will have the similar result with the positive NPV and 14% IRR. However, if we consider these three external factors in the left side, which is limitation, only two possible scenarios left for this project that you can see from the blue highlights and the checklist in the table. Next slide. The results show that to fulfill the external factor requirement as well as to achieve 14% IRR and positive NPV, the project should have a minimum LNG selling price around 6 US dollar. Maximum CAPEX have to be around 6 million US dollar, or 14% less than the basic scenario, and the maximum flare gas price should be set to be not more than 0.5 US dollar per MMBTU. Next slide. Okay, we have also some conclusion and recommendation from the study. Next. To sum up, there are two conclusions at this study. First, we conclude that the development of SSLNG is not feasible unless there are several adjustments applied. First, LNG selling price should be around 6 US dollar per MMBTU or above. And then the reduction of capex to be about 6 million US dollar or 40% less than the basic scenario. And the third, the flare gas price should be below 0.5 US dollar per MMBTU. And our second conclusion is that we learned that the change in average flare gas production and flare gas price can highly affect the economic calculation significantly for this project. And regardless of this result, the study doesn't represent all overall flare gas project in Indonesia because it's only one case. Maybe in other field, this kind of project could be done with high profitability. We don't know. There are also several alternatives that we think have a potential to fix this profitability, but it takes further research. That's what makes us have some recommendation for this study. Next slide, please.
I think the time for the presentation is over. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's get to Q&A. Eric Spandi asking about, according to MMR, the gas flare price of 0.35 USD per MMBTU is only for the government institution. How about the private sectors? Will it affect economic sensitivity?
If a business entity, sorry, I've still read the question. Business entity develop the government. Well, it's depend on what kind of the if the business entity develop. I think it's depend on what kind of collaboration that happen between the business entity and the government. Maybe if the government give like, let's say like a grant or incentive, it maybe will help the economic maybe it will help the capex, let's say, and it will give a higher profitability. But if it's still in the same, let's say like the joint venture with the similar with both government and the business entities try to get the profitability from this project, maybe the calculation will still about the same. I think. Is it
okay?
Answer the question?
Yes. Thanks for your explanations. I think it will affect the OPEX, yeah, or the scheme of the joint operation or joint venture. And according to my end-to-end experience as the process engineer and business developer, yeah, to extract the LPG from the flare gas, I think there will be another issue on this gas requirement, the feed gas requirement. As we know that the flare gas has many impurities, yeah, and it will affect to the operational costs as well as the capital expenditures. So I think I suggest you to further study about the gas specification for the flare gas. What is the minimum critical of the C1 or C2, yeah, and associated with the heating value, yeah, heating value. So we sell the energy as the value, heating value, yeah, instead of the just for the volume. I think I suggest to for the study, but I think your paper is quite interesting. Yeah, your explanation is quite interesting. Thanks, Masita, for your team.
Thank you, Mas Patria.
Yeah, give a big applause to Masita. Okay, let's next to
Yes, okay.
start the right
Okay,
way.
I would like to present. Yes,
Yeah, let's continue.
yes, I would like to present my paper about challenges and prospects of developing city gas to reduce import LPG in Indonesia. For introduction, Indonesia's natural gas reserve as of January 2019 amount to 77.29 trillion cubic feet, while the average production was 2.9 THA per year. Natural gas has a vital role in Indonesia's energy mix policy, so the percentage of natural gas export decreased from 52.5% in 2009 to 34.9% in 2019. One of the uses of refined natural gas in Indonesia is LPG, but Indonesia can only produce LPG around 26% of the total community needs in 2018. Besides, Indonesia also has to bear the burden of LPG subsidies for household sector. In 2018, the LPG subsidies reached 58 for 14 trillion. Unlike LPG, natural gas production in the form of dry gas in Indonesia is relatively abundant. It can be used as city gas, which should be a solution to import and LPG subsidies. However, the allocation for the export market is still high due to long-term contract. For the methodology, in this paper, we use descriptive qualitative approach, which analysis activity consists data collection, data condensation, data presentation, and concluding as a cyclical and interactive process. Researchers also triangulate and check members to get consistent and valid results. In result and discussion, we have regulation and status of city gas. The development of city gas in Indonesia began in 2009, and during this decade, there are 537,000 house connections have been built. There are two scenarios of city gas development, namely operational assessment from the government to BUMN with the APBN, and the initiative of other business entity itself. The development of city gas until the end of 2019, covering 17 provinces or 47 districts. The remaining network was built by Perusahaan Gas Negara and Pertagas, so there is no involvement by private enterprises. City gas is the main priority for natural gas users, but the absorption only 0.08% of all natural gas production in 2019. Besides, there is no binding and permanent regulation regarding the number of upstream gas prices for city gas. However, the government has set 4.25 to 4.72 USD per MMBTU, and it just for specific location and does not apply to the entire program. In the city gas development plan, the government targets the development of gas network for households of 4.7 million households by 2025. For 2020 to 2024, the government has prepared targets and funding scenarios of city gas development through the APBN, which will end in 2021. And after that, the government will rely on the involvement of BUMN and private business entities with the Community Business Entity Cooperation Scheme or KPBU. Table 1 tells about city gas development plan from 2020 to 2024 based on Presidential Decree number 18 year 2020. From this table, we can see that City Gas Development Plan with KPBU scheme have the highest number. City Gas program have many opportunities. One of them is National Priority Project. City Gas is one of the 2020 to 2024 National Priority Project, so the government will pay more attention to it. Besides that, natural gas, the ratio of reserve for natural gas production in Indonesia is 33.9 years. Also, there is still more hope for natural gas due to an increase in reserve replacement ratio or RRR, which reached 106% in 2018 and 353.72% in 2019. The third opportunities is natural gas production. Indonesia's natural gas production currently exceeds natural needs. There are several large upstream natural gas projects such as the Blok A Aceh, the East Natuna, the Jambaran Tiung Biru, the Indonesia Deepwater, the Marrakesh, the Tangguh Train 3, the Asap Kido Merah, and the Lapangan Abadi or Masela.
Sorry, the slide is still on the first slide.
Oh. No.
I cannot see the different slide from the beginning.
Yeah.
Does Halima present by yourself or
Yes.
assisted by co-host?
I will try.
Yes, the slideshow. Okay. Yep.
Have you seen? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Let's continue, Halima.
Okay.
Appreciate your.
And the fifth opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay. And the fifth opportunities of City Gas program is Natural Gas Network Development Plan. Based on the regulation of the Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources number 200 to 2700 K/11/MEM/2012, the government plans to build a transmission network on Cirebon Semarang, on Kek Saimeng Kek Dumai, and distribution network areas for 71 cities. The sixth opportunities is KPBU scheme. Starting in 2022, the government will stop APBN allocation for city gas development and replace it with the KBU scheme with BUMN and prepaid companies. In the KPBU scheme, the management of city gas infrastructure will be outlined in a corporation's contract that is expected to guarantee investment returns, so attract investors. And the last opportunities is prices on household and social acceptance. The government imposes a tariff for household and small customer using LPG market price as a comparison. Price for city gas is 4,227 per meter cubic, and price for subsidized LPG is 5,555 per meter cubic. Meanwhile, the public interest in natural gas is relatively high. It was at 75.6%. City gas development also have challenges. The first one is cost and pricing. Upstream gas price for city gas is the lowest price among other natural gas consumers, and the determination of the upstream gas price for city gas has not been considered burdensome for oil gas contractors. But high investment costs, low tariffs for household consumers, and a low volume of distribution are the reason for the unattractive economic of gas network development project. The other challenges is delays in upstream and downstream oil and gas projects. Some of gas projects did not go according to plan. For example, mini LNG in East Java and construction of Gresik Semarang transmission network were still experiencing problems. The main problems are demand and source of supply and the licensing process at downstream side. The last challenges is city gas service. Assessment of natural gas distribution service for 2015 to 2018 respectively shows unsatisfactory results. The level of customer satisfaction on household natural gas network is still low. Depok City gas customer hope the speed of the officer serving matter account errors and the speed of the officer serving complaint according to the promised time can be fixed immediately. And for city gas development obstacle, the point one is government licensing and social acceptance. The development of city gas requires permit and land use from the local government, which is not easy to do. It also occurs in developing natural gas transmission network such as the Gresik Semarang segment. There is a need for coordination between the central government and regional government to accelerate the licensing process. Also, the regional government needs to socialize and educate about the benefit and safety of installing city gas to community. The second obstacle is KPBU scheme is not clear. KPBU will be implemented starting in 2021 with 50,000 house connection, but there has been no investment or legal products related to this scheme. The government admits that implementing the KPBU scheme for city gas development will require a long process and is currently still in the initial review stage, and no public consultation has yet been carried out. Besides, the city gas development budget for 2020 has decreased due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and it had an impact in the following years. And the last obstacle is LPG subsidy policy is still unclear. The LPG subsidy is considered to be one of the main things that cause the ineffectiveness of the city gas program in Indonesia. It is because LPG distribution is still open, although there are already regulations regarding specific cost LPG distribution system. Implementing these policies is not optimal. Due to LPG's free distribution, people are less interested in city gas development in their area, such as the people in Bojonegoro. So, for the conclusion, apart from abundant reserves and natural gas production that is sufficient for domestic needs, the existing infrastructure and natural gas infrastructure development plans offer good prospects for developing city gas in the future. The main problem in the development of city gas is the lack of involvement of the private sector based on the low level of the project economy. High investment costs, low distribution of natural gas, and low tariffs affect investor interest in participating. The government is still providing support in the form of city gas development through APBN funding. However, this will not last long, so the KPBU scheme, which is expected to guarantee the business entities' economy, must be implemented immediately. And for the challenges in developing city gas infrastructure are low level of the economy, delays in upstream natural gas project and infrastructure development, and low customer satisfaction in using natural gas in their homes. And for the main obstacle, there are lengthy licensing process, social problems, unclear KPBU scheme, scheme and unclear handling on LPG subsidy, it will affect the speed of development even though the government can handle it immediately. Okay, thank you for the attention.
Okay, thanks for Halimah Sadia. We are fully appreciating to your effort. When you have limitations, but I personally would like to appreciate your effort. And there is a question: what is the advantage of the KBBU scheme in city gas development, and why the government stopped using ABBN after 2022 to support development city? Just for this one question, because the time is over actually. Okay. Uh, yeah, Halimah, could you please give a short answer for the Eric question?
Okay. KPBU scheme is a corporation contract between government and private sector. So the benefit for government is government can save APBN, and then government can with quality of city gas infrastructure. Also, government can sell risk between government and uh, business entities. So for the business entities, the advantage is capital scheme will be have a guaranteed uh, have a guaranteed return of investment. Also, also they have also there will be an entry point for business entities to invest in city gas project. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today, me myself, Adrian Akbaruntoro, and Pak Niko Siagian, I want to present our paper with the title Quo Vadis Steam Power Plant Indonesia in Indonesia by implementing the GE McKinsey metric analysis on creating strategy for a steam power plant business entity. Okay. Today, as we know that the renewable energy play a key role in generation energy mix, as predicted also by Bloomberg, that the renewable energy will be accounted for 62%. And in line with that, the government of Indonesia already also issue the National Energy General Plan, and they already target the mix of renewable energy increase to reach 23% by 2025. But the coal, the energy mix of the coal will be decreased from 55% in 2014 to 50% in 2025. Means that the coal still have a contribution to the energy mix of Indonesia. Okay. As we know, a lot of entities are involved in business related to the steam power plant. For example, the mining companies who mine the coals, and the coal transport companies who transport the coal from the mines to the consumer, which is the owner of the steam power plant, owned by PLN, PLN subsidiaries, or an independent power producer or IPP. And as we know that a large portion of conventional power plant, particularly steam power plant, have been installed in Indonesia. As I said that in energy mix in 2014, the coal has contributed to 55% from the total of energy mix. So the coal entity business in electricity is required to improve the portfolio management, particularly coal-related business, to deal with the change in future of energy mix. As we know that the renewable energy intervention will be very high because the price is getting reduced. So strategic portfolio analysis that consider the internal and external condition of coal and electricity industry is required to optimize the portfolio of coal entity business in electricity. So this is the framework of thinking. There is two analysis that we do. The first one is we analyze the internal and external factor of coal industry in Indonesia by using Pestel analysis and Porter analysis. Pestel analysis consists of political aspect, economic, social, technology, and environmental and legals. And in Porter analysis, we do the analysis of internal factor, the industry of the coals. And after we do the Pestel analysis and Porter analysis, we do the current portfolio analysis by using GE McKinsey matrix analysis. There is two factors or criteria that is analyzed. The first one is market attractiveness assessment, and the second one is business strength assessment. So we assess the internal and external factor of strategic business unit that we define in coal industry based on coal specification and the sulfuric content. And after we do the current portfolio analysis, we propose the strategy for the business entity that involved in coal industry. So the first one is the Pestel and Porter analysis. In Pestel, there is 5 factors that is analyzed. The first one is political. As we know, the climate change is becoming the global issues, and by that, the world already agreed on Paris Agreement, and then they do also the Renewable Energy Initiative. And as we know, today, the coal demand for the export is projected to be declined as the world already increased the renewable energy implementation. But as we know that as government has already target or issued the energy plan, that coal still is the main contributor to energy mix. So the domestic coal is increasing. In economic aspect, as we know that global economic growth will be stagnant in 2019 until 2020, and due to the COVID, it will be worse. And also the cost of renewable energy have been declining. The solar module, the wind power, the battery, all of them has been reduced. And there is social cultural, as we know that coal maybe health issue is still become a problem. And related to the technology, as we know that mining level of technology maturity is very relatively low, because only 7 from the top 14 mining companies in the world that have a chief technology officer. It's so that the technology in the development of technology in coal industry is very is already mature. And related to the environmental and legal, there is a concern as we know that related to the Paris Agreement, there is higher standard of higher standard of emission, because they want to reduce prevent the effect of the climate change. And the second one is we do the Porter analysis. There is 4 aspects that we analyze. The first is threat of the new entrants. We see that this is because the coal industry is capital intensive industry, so the attractiveness is very low related to the trade, and bargaining power of buyer is low also because it is commodity based business, and trade of substitute is low because there is so many alternative, and bargaining power of supplier is very low because it's mining by contractor, and rivalry among existing competitors is low because it's compete on low stripping ratio. And then we do the current portfolio analysis by using a GE McKinsey matrix analysis. We categorize or we define the typical coal based on the 2 criteria. The first one is based on calorific value, which is the high rank, above 6,100, and medium rank between 5,100 and 6,100. and there is low rank and very low rank. And the second criteria is total sulfur. There is two criteria. The first one is high sulfur, above 0.3%, and low sulfur below 0.3%. Based on the two of the criteria, we define a strategic business unit by combining of the two factors. So there is a combination that become strategic business unit. There is high rank, high sulfur, high rank, low sulfur, and then middle rank, high sulfur, and middle rank, low sulfur, low rank, high sulfur, and low rank, low sulfur, and the last one is very low rank, low sulfur, and very low rank, high sulfur. And then after we have decided the strategic business unit, so we do the GE mechanisymmetric analysis. As we have explained before, there is two factors that is analyzed. The first one is market attractiveness, and the second one is business strength. In terms of market attractiveness, medium rank coal has the highest value, which is so the highly attractive for the market, followed by the low rank coal, high rank, and very low rank coal. Medium rank and low rank coal has a size and growth higher than the other. So the first and the second factor is the size and the growth that we measure to measure the attractiveness of the coal in the market. So medium rank and low rank has the size and growth higher than the others because both of them are the highest reserve coal in Indonesia, probable and proven, and accounted for 70 to 80%. Also, the both rank is the type of coal which is exported to China, India, Southeast Asia, and even the demand in China and India is already declining during this year. But for the domestic consumption, both of them will be increased as to develop coal power plant is in line with the national government plan that has already been issued. In terms of energy impact and financial aspect, medium coal rank also has a higher value since the investment cost could be lower and the net plant heat rate would also be lower, lead to the lower C component tariff. And then also related to the environmental aspect, the emission from the medium coal rank would be lower since the usage of the coal would be lesser with the assumption of the sulfur content is the same. And then related to the market diversity in domestic consumption, actually power plant is the main consumer, accounted for 85% in 2015. But there is other consumer, which is a cement industry, fertilizer industry, textile, pulp industry. But they use low. They just accounted for 8%, and then there also metallurgy industry, which is use high rank coal, but just for 0.4%. So the market diversity for the low and medium coal is relatively higher than the others rank. And for the second aspect is business strength. There is market share, product quality, and general image. And medium rank also has a higher values. And another aspect which is relative same, such as the experience curve effect and R&D for all of the coal rank. So basically, based on the analysis, we see that the medium rank for high sulfur and low sulfur. Yeah.
3 minutes left.
Okay. The highest value that we need to build and grow is medium rank, high sulfur and low sulfur, and low rank, high sulfur and low sulfur, and also high rank, low sulfur. And but for we should hold and maintain is high rank, high sulfur, very low rank, high sulfur, and low sulfur. And then based on that analysis, we propose the strategy for business entity that is involved in coal industry. For example, for the coal concession owner, not only looking for low rank and very long rank concession to be acquired, but also looking for medium coal rank, especially in Sumatra, which at the current valuation will be at low values. And as trader, the priority is to secure coal of high res, very low rank high sulfur and very low rank low sulfur given the limited amount of the coal resources. And the second one is negotiating coal supply contract for high RLS, MRLS, low rank low sulfur, medium rank high sulfur, and low rank high sulfurs. And for the coal transporter, the strategies are apart from being used by PLN Batubara, it's also allocate a large barge or mother vessel to serve as mean of transportation for coals companies, high rank low sulfur, medium rank low sulfur, low rank low sulfur, and medium rank high sulfur, and low rank high sulfur. And for the IPP, there is two proposed strategy. For the first one, for the coastal steam power plant, not only developing middle rank, but also high rank low sulfur. And for mine mouth, to use middle rank coal, not just very low rank coal, considering that medium rank coal is still very large. Okay, thank you for the attention and time.
Thank you very much for an interesting talk. Now, if anyone has questions, I'm sure Mr. Adrian would be pleased to answer them. And please mention your name and your organization. Maybe, ladies and gentlemen, any question? So nobody asked. It seems that the material presented by Mr. Adrian is very clear. Maybe I will ask, which type of coal is imported, and how big is the percentage ratio of coal shipment between domestic and import?
Okay. For actually the presentation for domestic use and export is actually the export is 80%, and for the domestic coal consumption is very low, is still low, 20%. But actually related to the recent condition, as we know that as the world already focused on how to implement renewable energy to increase the renewable energy, so to reduce the using the coal, I think for domestic use, in line with the national plan that has already been issued, that the coal is still to be main contributor to the energy mix, 50% in 2025. So there is a decrease in import, but also there is an increase actually in the domestic coal consumption.
And then how about which type of the coal most import? You said before high coal, medium coal, low coal. Which one?
Yeah, actually the type of coal that is imported is basically mainly medium coal and high coal, and low rank coal also. There is an low rank coal to be export. Three type of coal: high rank, and medium, and low rank. But actually, as we know that Indonesia has already reserve in medium coal rank and low coal rank, so the both of type of rank that mainly exported to the China and India as the main consumer for the export.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Adrian.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, all participants. I am Muhammad Iksan from Institut Teknologi Bandung, ITB. I am representing my research team that consists of Yusuf Faisal Martak, Citra Retna Septriandika, and Purnomo Yusgiantoro. In this occasion, we affiliate with ITB and Artikel 33, a research organization based in Jakarta. I will present our research on topic of BBM satu harga or one price fuel policy entitled Is Cheap Fuel Policy a Short-Term Remedy for Costly Transportation in Rural Indonesia? I divide my presentation today into 5 sessions consisting of introduction of research problem and the policy itself, objective of our research, data and model and results, and I will close the presentation with the discussion and conclusion. And now let's begin from the introduction. We have collected some literatures related to the energy development in rural regions of developing countries. Some of the main literatures are provided. Access to affordable modern energy sources has long become a challenge for economic development in rural regions, particularly from the Global South, from Barnes and Floor, 1996. In most cases, the remoteness of some rural regions is considered the main cause of high costs of energy consumption from Kagusus 2011A. Recently, with the growing use of motorized vehicles in the non-urban regions by Starkey et al. 2002, the pressure for the provision of affordable transport
Sorry, Mr.
fuels such
Iksan, we are still see first slide.
Oh, I think the slide is freeze
Okay.
if I use slideshow mode. So how I present this? Okay, I will not use the slideshow mode, yeah?
Okay.
Okay. The pressure for the provision of affordable transport fuels such as gasoline and diesel for rural communities is increasing from Kagusus 2011B. In the case of Indonesia, from sub-districts data collected by the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources in CNBC, we found that in some rural regions in Indonesia, the fuel prices there range from 7 to 75,000 rupiah per liter. Meanwhile, in the urban regions, the consumer can buy fuel at much lower prices based on data from April 2016, from which the fuel price have not been changed by the government. The urban consumers can buy gasoline or premium and diesel or solar at prices of 6,450 and 5,150 rupiah per liter respectively. So what does government do to address this problem? In November 2016, the government under Joko Widodo's administrations began to implementing a policy called One Price Fuel Policy by the issuance of Regulation of Minister of the Energy and Mineral Resources number 36 2016 on accelerating the uniform prices for the subsidized and assigned fuel across the regions in Indonesia. The policy assigns company Pertamina and AKR Corporindo to open gas stations in the frontier, outermost, and underdeveloped villages, or desa terdepan, terluar, dan tertinggal, or usually called 3T villages or 3T villages, to sell the gasoline and diesel fuels at government price control. The government has set total target of one price fuel policies implementation in 500 rural regions by 2024. Now let's see the progress of the policy. By the end of 2019, Pertamina and AKR Corporindo have opened 160 new gas stations in the 3T villages. From Pertamina's data, by mid-2019, the state-owned enterprise has supplied the fuel to rural regions at a rate of around 14,000 kiloliters per month. However, the fuel supply for the implementation for this one price fuel policy was just a small share in the Pertamina fuel cell nationally, accounting no more than 0.18% in 2018. At this point, sorry, I have to move this. At this point, this policy seems to be a remedy for the problem of fuel price gaps. So why we consider this policy a short-term remedy? First, we have to scrutinize what does actually cause this price gap. We might find that distributing fuels to all regions across the country is still a huge challenge. Remoteness actually adds more cost to the energy supply chains, resulting in higher retail energy price. In response to that, oil companies such as Pertamina are reluctant to operate gas stations in rural regions, particularly in the remote ones. This is in part because given the government's direct and indirect control over domestic fuel prices, the companies cannot economically run their business there. Consequently, people from rural regions often have to travel many miles to reach the nearest gas stations. Furthermore, with the lack of fuel supplier in rural regions, informal fuel retailers eventually emerge and charge exorbitant prices for the communities. Therefore, we say that this policy does not straightly address the root of the problem of why the fuel price gap are so high. Second, by forcing companies to open gas stations in three T villages, the government has not prepared special budgets for the implementation of this policy. This implies the assigned companies need to bear all the costs of distributing fuel to rural regions. Without clear compensation by the government, the distribution costs to rural regions are high because access to these areas is often difficult. Improved shipping infrastructure and storage facilities are actually necessary to support the least cost of energy supply. In most cases, where the proposed infrastructure investment is too high for the assigned companies, they tend to choose a short-term policy to just transport the fuel by using very expensive distribution mode, such as by aircraft. Zibali Hizbul, coordinator of One Price Fuel policy in Pertamina revealed to public in the TIC in 2018 that Pertamina spent 40 to
Mr. Iksan,
50,000
I think
rupiah.
it's freeze again.
Sorry?
I think it's freeze again.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I don't know why. What should I do?
Maybe Mr. Angga. Ooh. Angga, Mr. Angga, can you help?
Yes.
I'm still at the slide 8. Is it freeze there?
What?
The PowerPoint is freezing. Still,
I'm still in slide 8.
Your voice. Your
Are you
voice
seeing
is
that slide?
what?
I'm seeing slide
I'm still.
8.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm still at that slide. It's not freezing.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm still at that slide. That's fine. I hope you can give me more time, yeah?
Okay.
Zibali Hizbul, coordinator of One Price Fuel policy in Pertamina, revealed to public in the TIC in 2018 that Pertamina spent 40 to 50,000 rupiah to distribute every liter of fuel by using air tractor to remote villages in Papua. Therefore, we also say that this policy is financially unsustainable. We are totally aware that the reduction of fuel prices will result in reduced transport costs. However, that is not always the case when the policy is not effectively implemented. From media, we found that people reported that the equal prices in rural villages in Papua lasted only a few weeks, referred from Kompas 2017. Also, in the Mentawai Islands, informal retailers could buy large volumes of fuel at one price fuel station, so that fuel was still scarce and expensive there, from CNBC 2019. And many other information gathered, particularly from local media, say so. At this point, we can raise further question. So is it not effectively implemented in the field? Or is it just a policy with high political economy dimensions? At this point, although it seemed obvious, some information sources inform the negative outcome of the policy. From this, we realized that as assessing the real impact of the policy implementation is still valuable to be conducted. This is because we cannot be sure whether this policy has been effectively implemented or not on the site. Therefore, this research is aimed to test the effectiveness of the policy implementation by asking a research question: how is the impact of one price fuel policy to the domestic transport costs in rural regions? By domestic transport costs, we define them as the prices borne by rural communities for traveling in or around their neighboring villages. These costs are different from the distribution costs for transporting fuels or commodities from or to the villages. So now we will move to discuss data and model used to answer the research question. In developing the model and its scenario, we use data mostly from Statistik Indonesia or BPS, namely Village Potential Statistic or PODES 2014 and 2018. We also use data of 58 one price fuel policy intervened sub-district from BPH Migas, and also a list of 30 villages from Decree of Minister of Village Development of Disadvantaged Region and Transmigration number 126, 2017. Here is the map of 58 government-appointed sub-districts for one price fuel policy since 2016. In this model, we consider all villages under the sub-district serve as the treatment group and all other villages under the same district as the comparison group. In this research, to see the impact of one price fuel policy to domestic transport costs, we use the model of difference in difference. This difference in difference model is frequently applied to evaluate or assess the policy impact. In this model, we consider the domestic transport cost as the dependent variable. The natural logarithm is applied to our dependent variable to reduce the variance of domestic transport costs with previous value ranging from 100 to 1,000 rupiah. Beta 1 is the average change in domestic transport costs between treatment and comparison group that is common to two time period between 2014 and 2018. Beta 2 is the average change in domestic transport costs through two time period that is common to both treatment and comparison group. Beta 3 is our coefficient of interest reflecting average change in domestic transport costs of treatment group relative to the comparison group between through two time period. And lastly, xi is factor of our control variable. The inclusion of control variable into the model will avoid overestimating the value of the coefficient of the interest. Here is the summary of all variables used in this model. The control variables used here are shown in the red box. After running the model, we find the results as follows. In total, we run 7 scenarios for this difference in difference model. Scenarios 1, 2, and 3 have no control variables, and we put sensitivity for fixed effects and propensity score matching. The fixed effects are included into sensitivity to remove the effects of village-specific factors that might influence the domestic transport costs. Meanwhile, the propensity score matching is included to eliminate the unobserved time invariant differences in our dependent variable between treatment and comparison group. In other words, this makes our comparison group have equivalently similar characteristics to the treatment group. For scenario 4 and 5, we have included a set of control variables and still with a sensitivity for fixed effect and propensity score matching. With control variables, fixed effects, and propensity score matching, we can ensure that scenario 5 is the best model we have. For scenarios 6 and 7, we actually exercise scenario 5 with division of rural region observation into two categories, 3T and non-3T villages respectively. From all these scenarios, we can see consistent result of the estimation of the coefficient of interest. From the best model we have, scenario 5, we read that there is a reduction of domestic transport costs by almost 65% in a village under one price fuel policy intervened sub-district. And the reduction is also affected by asphalted road and public transportation provision by 15% and 34% respectively. From scenarios 6 and 7, we can see that one price fuel policy is only impactful in 3 3T regions, where the reduction of fuel prices in 3T regions reached by 90%. Now let's move to discussion and conclusion. Although we consider one price fuel policy as a short-term remedy for the problem, we find that policy has been effectively implemented. This is observed from the reduction in domestic transport costs in the intervened rural regions. The introduction of the one price fuel policy to rural regions has fruitfully guaranteed a provision of cheaper fuel and eventually cut the cost of transportation in these regions. These findings does not necessarily mean a reduction in cost of transporting or distributing commodities from or to this region. With the current data used, our analysis is limited to estimate the domestic change in the intervened regions. We also indicate the one price fuel policy implementation has only a significant effect in 3T villages, whereas it has no significant effect in non-3T villages. These findings make sense in terms of fuel prices. Both village categories have a different start. Before the intervention, 3T villages were supposed to have higher fuel prices due to their remoteness. Meanwhile, non-3T villages have already had relatively affordable fuel prices as they are not remote. And finally, we find that improving transportation infrastructure to the provision of public transportation and asphalted road is among fruitful attempts to reduce the domestic transport costs in rural regions. This implies that improving transportation infrastructure can be alternative policies to the one price fuel policy. Nevertheless, at this stage of study, although the one price fuel policy reduces the domestic transport costs in rural regions with significantly larger reduction compared to the alternative policies, we still cannot clarify which policy is more superior over others. This is because many other factors influencing the policy outcome. We might expect that rural infrastructure development would reduce more domestic transport costs when the investment in infrastructure policy is increased, for instance. Nevertheless, more study need to be carried out to assess the real benefit and cost of the one price fuel policy compared to the alternative policy available, so that we can provide a more comprehensive answer for the transportation and energy problem in rural Indonesia. That is all. Thank you. I'm happy to have further interesting discussion. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your interesting talk, Mr. Iksan. Now, if anyone has any question, I'm sure Mr. Iksan would be pleased to answer them. Any questions? So nobody else. It seems that the material is quite very clear.
Unfortunately.
Maybe can you give your opinion? Is it legal if there is some rural area like in Papua or 3T sell fuel with different price? I mean, cheaper or higher? What's your opinion?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. So actually, it is not. We are not talking about whether it is legal or not, because the government has already had a regulation that every gas station, every gas station have to sell particularly the government's the state-owned enterprise Pertamina's gas station have to sell the fuel at the same price in all regions in Indonesia. But the problem is, like I explained in this presentation, that there is a price control set by the government for the Pertamina to sell their fuels, including the subsidized and assigned fuels such as premium and solar. And with that control, government control on the price, the Pertamina become reluctant to expand their the operation of their gas station in the rural regions, even when the demand for the fuel is there in the rural regions. But because it is not economic for the Pertamina to open at the government control price, they won't open the new gas station there. And the impact is there is a huge scarcity of fuels in the rural regions, because to have to consume fuels, the rural community have to go miles to the nearest gas station. And with that scarcity, the informal retailers from the local community emerge. They buy from somewhere, and then they charge the very high price for the rural communities to consume the price. So I think this is the effect of a very highly regulated sector like fuels in Indonesia.
Okay, thank you. There is one more question from Haryanto. Mr. Haryanto, is there particular reason why do you choose this model, different regression model, and not the others? Thank you.
Yeah, actually, there are so many econometric model that we can use. But here, the objective of this study is to see the impact, to do assessment and evaluation of the policy. So difference in difference provide me opportunity to have that answer, because with the limited data, I only have two data in two period of time, 2014 and 2018. I can use this model to assess this policy. So it's all depend on what the objective of the study and also the data that we have. And with all that condition, different indifference is perfect for me to evaluate, to see the impact of this one price fuel policy.
Okay, Mr. Haryanto, is it clear? Okay, thank you. So I will conclude.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please let me introduce myself. My name is Surya Ibrahim. I am from PT Pembangkitan Jawa Bali, also usually called PJB, stands for Pembangkitan Jawa Bali. And in this opportunity, please allow me to present about the paper that we have been researched for, with the title Value Creation by Capitalizing Goodwill, Equity Funding Using Shareholder Loan Scheme to Reduce Electricity Cost of Provision. This paper was written by me and my colleague, Heri Negosiagian, who has been very supportive in this research. Okay, let us start. So in order to support national economic growth, the Indonesian government has made a program called 35.000 megawatt untuk Indonesia, or we can say 35,000 megawatts for Indonesia. This is a program to build power plants around Indonesia with a total capacity of 35,000 megawatts. That is why it's called 35,000 megawatts for Indonesia. This program is including the development and construction of power plants, transmission and substation, and also the distribution connection. The program is part of the RUPDL, which the procurement was expected to be done by 2019. It is such a big program, and big program usually requires big amount of money, right? And based on PLN's infographic, the program requires 1,100 trillion rupiah. It is a big deal, but the question is, where do they get the money? So considering the financial power that PLN has, PLN was trusted to develop 10,000 megawatts out of 35,000 megawatts. And the other 25,000 megawatts was decided to be private sector portion. And in developing the 10,000 megawatts portion, PLN assigned its subsidiaries to develop the power plants in IPP scheme. So there will be another party in the development of the power plants beside the subsidiary. But PLN limited its subsidiaries that in developing the power plants, the subsidiary must have 51% of share. so that PLN Group has the majority of the share. Next, there are usually two sources of project funding. The first one is through equity, and the second one is loan. The portion of equity and loan may vary for each project. Some may apply 80% loan and 20% equity. Some may apply 70-30 debt equity ratio, and some may apply 75-25 debt equity ratio, which also used in this research. We consider this project as a goodwill. Goodwill is something intangible, an intangible asset, and the assignment from PLN to its subsidiary is, we consider it as an intangible asset. The subsidiary doesn't have to compete on the bidding process and other process that takes a lot of time and effort. But PLN was like, there you go, here's the project for you. Yeah, so we believe this project is a goodwill. And this is the figure as an illustration. PLN assigned its subsidiary, and together with the partner, they form a company to develop the project. And talking about equity, the amount of money that a company should deposit or inject to an investment is usually as much as the share it has, right? Let's say like a company has 60% of share, then the company should deposit 60% of the equity portion. But it is a bit different in this case, which makes the project more unique. Considering the financial power, PLN limited its subsidiary to inject just 10% of the equity portion. So in this case, the subsidiary and the partner have to deposit 25% equity, but the subsidiary of PLN can only deposit 10% of the equity portion, as shown here. So with the 51% of share that the subsidiary has, it can only deposit 10% of the equity. And the rest 41% will be funded through another loan to fulfill the 51% equity portion of the subsidiary. We call it equity loan, equity funded through loan, equity loan. And the other 49% of equity will be funded by partner, as the partner has 49% of the share on the project. So yeah, this is where the story begins and where things got more interesting and challenging at the same time. Okay, let's continue to method. The first reference that we used in this paper is net present value. It is the present value of future cash flows minus the present value of the cost of the investment. This formula will generate a result which can be considered in decision-making process, whether or not to take the project. If the result is higher than 0, then accept the project. It is a feasible project. But if the result is less than 0, then reject the project. It is not a profitable project. The second reference we used in this paper is internal rate of return. It is basically the rate of return that a firm will earn in an investment, and it is the condition where the NPV is equal to 0. On this research, we used 3 IRR calculations, which are project IRR, equity IRR, and also subsidiary IRR. The difference is the cash flow. The project IRR is an IRR using the project cash flow. Equity IRR is using equity cash flow, while the subsidiary IRR is using the subsidiary cash flow. And in this case, we used our financial model as a tool of analysis with the data and then analyze it with a financial model. Moving on to results and discussions. So this is the project cost and the tariff we used in this research. ABC cost is the cost of engineering, procurement, and construction. Development cost is including the cost of consultant and also the cost from license and permit. Initial working capital is the cost used for the initial operation. Financing fee is the cost related to money lending. Sum it all, and the project cost is $1.1 billion. And the component A tariff used in this research is as follow, roughly 9.8 cent US dollar per kilowatt hour. And this data was applied into 3 funding options, which are partner loan, shareholder loan, and bond. So the 3 options have the same data, everything is same, except the equity loan scheme. First option is partner loan. So it is a loan from partner to subsidiary, and then the subsidiary deposit the money to the project company. In the scheme, the subsidiary has the obligation to repay the loan from partner. Option 2 is shareholder loan. Instead of giving the money to the subsidiary, the partner give the money to the project company directly. Then the project company has to repay the loan to partner. And the last option is through bond. In this scheme, the subsidiary issue bond to the partner, and then the subsidiary has to pay coupon every year and the principal at the end of the maturity date to the partner. So the 3 options have the same indicators: 41% of equity, 5% of interest or coupon rate, and 8 years of repayment period or maturity date. The authors believe that the same value of indicators will generate fair comparison between the 3 options. So after analyzing the data through financial model, we have the result here. Based on the result, the project is feasible, but there are some differences on the value for each options. This is the IRR comparison between the 3 options. First, if we look at the project IRR, option 2 generates slightly higher result than the other 2 with 12.05%. This caused by the tax to be paid by the project company in option 2 is lower than the other 2 options. Since in option 2, the project company has to repay the loan to partner, so its earning before tax is lower than the other 2 options, causing a lower amount of tax. And for option 1 and 3 have the same project IRR because the cash flow is exactly the same. There's no loan repayment in the project level, giving the 2 options a project IRR of 12%. Moving to equity IRR, again, option 1 and 3 have the same value because of the similar cash flow they have. And for option 2, it generates lower number than the other 2 option with the value of 16.90%. This caused by the repayment that the project company has to do to the partner. So the project company has to repay the loan to the partner. So the money for the shareholders is not as much as the other 2 options. So that's why the IRR is lower than the other 2 options. But even though option 2 has the lowest equity IRR, it provides the highest IRR in subsidiary point of view, with a value of 42.23%. This is, well, because the subsidiary only inject 10% of equity, but in return it will receive 51% of dividend. The second highest subsidiary IRR is through option 3, where the subsidiary pay the coupon to the partner and pay the principal at the end of the maturity date. Option 2 generates subsidiary IRR of, option 3 generates subsidiary IRR of 15.59%. And option 1, where subsidiary has to repay the loan to the partner, generates subsidiary IRR of 14.69%. Next, in terms of subsidiary NPV, option 2, option shareholder loan, gives the highest NPV with 145 million. And option 3, option bond, gives NPV of 48 million, while option 1, option loan partner, gives the lowest NPV with 39.5 million. With the data we have analyzed it and then looking at the result, the the 3 options are feasible. They're all okay, but option 2 will give the best benefit for PLN Group. So in generating the NPV and IRR value, our approach was to lock the tariff, and then the result of NPV and IRR will be generated through the financial model. But to look if the three options will bring benefit in terms of reducing the cost of provision, the BPP, we did the other way around. Instead of locking the tariff, we locked the subsidiary IRR to 12%. From that starting point, we were trying to figure out how much is the tariff if we want the subsidiary IRR is 12%, since 12% is usually the line in PLN Group. And the baseline option here is the option where the equity loan is not applied. It is where the subsidiary can deposit 51% of equity instead of 10%. There's no equity loan scheme in the
Yeah, you
baseline
have
option.
3 minutes left.
Okay, thank you. So from this input, the result is as shown here. Option 2 offers the lowest tariff, roughly 5.4 cent US dollar, lower than the baseline option. And on the other hand, option 1 and 3 offers a higher tariff than the baseline option. So option 2, which is equity funding through shareholder loan, is not just the most beneficial for the subsidiary, but it also offers the lowest tariff comparing to the other options. Okay, time to wrap up this presentation. Based on our approach of locking the value of the tariff, this is the result of the NPVs and IRRs, while option 2 generates the lowest equity IRR. It generates the highest number in other indicators. It gives you the highest project NPV, it gives you the highest project IRR, as well as subsidiary NPV and subsidiary IRR. On the second approach, where we lock the subsidiary IRR into a certain satisfying value, which is 12%, option 2 generates the lowest component A tariff. The difference with the other two options is around 3 cent US dollar. Therefore, based on the data we have here, it leads us that option 2, equity funding option through shareholder loan, is the best equity funding option to be applied between the three options. The shareholder loan scheme creates value by capitalizing goodwill as it reduces the electricity costs, and we found it interesting that little difference of a scheme can make a huge impact here in the development of power plants. Okay, that's all for our sharing. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Surya, for an interesting talk. Now, if anyone has any question, I'm sure Mr. Surya would be pleased to answer them. And please mention your name and your organization. Any question, please? So it seems that the material is very clear. Maybe I want to ask, why in some area is still experience blackout? Maybe like in Medan, like that. Is it because the electricity cost or what?
Regarding the electricity supplies, first of all, I would like to say that it is not my expertise, that I'm not a technical person, but to answer that, it might be some problem in the operation of the power plants. It could be the reason. And we believe that the tariff does not involve in the blackout of in a certain area. But again, I'm sorry, I'm not the expert in technical expertise.
Oh, okay. Maybe in your opinion, you said before the government created 35,000 megawatt. Is it for which area? Is it for a whole Indonesia or some rural regions?
We believe the priority is not Java Island, since there are many power plants and the supply is already there. And we believe that the 35,000 megawatts should focus more on rural area, especially in East Indonesia. And for Java, I think it's not the priority.
Okay, thank you for your information, Mr. Surya.
You're welcome.